All right, I've got 6:30, so let's go ahead and call the meeting to order, and we'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Which stands one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I'm looking at here, okay. Next, we will move on to consideration and approval of the agenda.
So moved.
I'll second. Motion by Kyle, second by Dan. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. All right, next we will move on to public forum. This is an opportunity for citizens to present items to the council that are not on the agenda. Each presentation is limited to 3 minutes with a maximum of 15 minutes set aside. If your item needs follow-up from the city, staff will arrange time for that. If you'd like to step forward for public forum, please make your way up to the podium, state your name and address and your concern.
My name is Barry Maxwell, I'm the 727 Avenue, Southwest Scientific. My concern is the housing issue. Not to tell people here. To fix out, and nobody wants to be in the complex, are people being in the she won't. Ask me to be mayor about it, why not? I'm here to receive the chair.
Sorry, everybody, just got out of the emergency room, but I'm doing okay.
I'm sorry, I took your chair.
Hi, Dee, welcome.
Why not? I,
So I can address this. Terry and I met, and then we met with some council members. A form was never filled out to be on the agenda, so that's, well, I didn't know you still wanted to be on the agenda after we had a meeting.
So,
But
so, not so. If I want, you know what I want.
yeah, and we've discussed how, what our options are. But I did not know you wanted to be on council still. I thought we were discussing this outside. Okay.
Well, they're doing on whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
For me.
Yeah, I will be in tomorrow. Tomorrow morning would be good if that works for you.
All right, this is still a public forum. If anybody else would like to speak for public forum, please make your way to the podium, state your name and address and your concerns. I will ask again, if anybody would like to step forward for public forum. And I will ask for a third and final time, if anybody would like to step forward for public. Hearing none, we will move on to public hearings. Item number 5.1, public art public hearing. We want to let Tabitha give us an overdraft first, or?
Sure.
In the end of 2024, a request was made to paint the crosswalk at the intersection of Fifth Street Southeast and Second Avenue Southeast. The council then directed it to go to Ordinance Review Committee and Public Works Committee to review it further and bring it back to a decision. The Ordinance Committee met in January and had discussions, and it was decided to do further research and draft a potential ordinance. A draft ordinance was presented at the February meeting and modifications were made. After a thorough review and extensive discussion at March meeting, including some small revisions, the ordinance was approved to move forward to a public hearing. During the January Public Works Committee meeting, extensive discussion took place, and it was decided to conduct further research and revisit the matter at their March meeting. At the March meeting, additional discussions occurred, and the committee recommended proceeding with drafting a policy to prohibit any changes in the transportation right of way due to safety concerns. This policy will be presented at their meeting for review.
Tabitha. At this point in time, we will go ahead and open up the public hearing. If anybody would like to step forward and speak on the public art public hearing, please make your way to the podium, state your name and address. So we'll listen to your concerns.
Hi, I'm Mary Kay Rodman, and I represent the Pine Center for the Arts, for the little corner that can. We put up our house for 10 years when we didn't think we could. For nearly done paying off our mortgage that we thought we never could. Eighth, because we have 12 businesses that come forth every year and support our galleries with donations. So I know the business community would be allied with this. The Art Center is 100% favor of passing this ordinance because we feel like arts are for everyone. When a community embraces the arts, community embraces growth. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. All right, this is a public hearing. If you
Brian Shalene, 725th Avenue Southwest, Plain City. I was somewhat involved on the ordinance committee in creating this site. I think it's really good. Yeah, for a number of reasons. I'm a little baffled by the statement that there are concerns over safety within the art in the public right of way. Because all of the research I've done, and it's quite a bit, there's never been a valid safety concern. Instead, what they find is that the more public art you have in the right of way, the safer the right of way is for, particularly for pedestrians, but also for car traffic. It reduces statistically the number of accidents that happen in the right of way in the area, and especially pedestrian, bicycle, and car conflicts. Primarily because it slows people down, but also because it gets their attention and makes them pay attention, not necessarily to the art, but pay attention to what's around them. And that's so important, especially because I don't think Pine City is a particularly safe place for bicyclists and pedestrians. So I don't know, has anyone read any articles about safety caused by public art? If not, check out strongtowns.org, check out streets.min. They both had numerous articles about how much safer it makes streets to have public art. So that's my point.
Thank you. Thank you. If anybody else would like to step forward for the public hearing, please make your way to the podium and state your concerns.
Aaron Lombard, 725 Third Avenue Southwest. You've already heard from me, so short. I do just want to reiterate to council that the public works meeting, it keeps being brought up. There's issues with safety and there's nothing it does against this. I do understand there's something that also states how to do it, or who should do it. But no matter what anybody says that they called somebody in the state who's their friend, that's not an official ruling, that's just hearsay. So I just thought that was important. This is not a real rule, it is ultimately up to you guys to decide that, of course, but there's not an actual state rule. That's.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. If anybody else would like to step forward, please make your way to the podium. I will ask again, this is a public hearing. If you'd like to step forward and speak on this issue, please make your way to the podium. And I will ask for a third and final time. If anybody would like to step forward, please make your way to the podium, state your name and address your concerns. Hearing none at this point in time, we will close the public hearing. We will be taking this under advisement. This is item number 12.5 on our agenda. So we will circle back to this a little bit later on. Next, we will move on to item number 5.2, Pine City Area Pickleball Presentation.
Yes.
We got an extra one?
First of all, my name is Nancy Count. I am the treasurer of Pine City Area Pickleball. I thank you for some time here to this presentation. We appreciate the opportunity to share this presentation with you. What state this proposal is based on a partnership with the city and funding availability with financial into presentation. For now, we'll just hold all our questions until the end. And we'll try to time for that. Our agenda here is going to be the introduction of PCAP, which stands for Pine City Area Pickleball, the proposal for the pickleball facility. There'll be the site plan, floor plan, renderings, and then we'll have our project phasing. So who we are, Pine City Pickleball, we're an inclusive community of pickleball players. We've been around for about 12 to 15 years, and we've started in email to our people, and we are now at about 290 people. Now, not all those people play pickleball, they all want information about it. We come from, call ourselves pickleball, Pine City area because we have people from Bransford, from Cambridge, people from Mankato that are up here at their cabin. We get people from all over coming to play them. Okay, we were founded in 2024. We play daily up at the Shotwood now, Monday through Sunday, and we pretty much know 5 courts up there. I think some of you lost track of that. Our mission, which I really want to read word for word because I think it's important. We are looking to further strengthen our community by utilizing pickleball as a source of recreation, entertainment, and social networking. And our vision is to make Pine City area a destination location for recreational competitive players to gather and enjoy friendly competition. So pickleball stats real quick. Pickleball is one of the fastest growing sports out there. There's over 16,000 pickleball facilities in the United States. That's an average of 320 per state. That's a 300% growth rate in the last 3 years. The health benefits, there's a lot of great health benefits, mental health benefits, which is a big one for me. Cardio, balance, flexibility, community engagement. It really brings a lot of people together. It really crosses generations. I was up at pickleball last Saturday. We had a teenager, someone in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. We're talking 7 decades of people, and these people are all playing together. You got a 19-year-old playing with a 70-year-old. I don't know many sports that can really do that cross generation like that. It's wonderful. There's a lot of community engagement there. As far as economic boost, this is something that could attract visitors, bring more business in. I was playing pickleball today up in Hinkley, and at the end, one of the guys said to me, you know, who wants to go to lunch? And all of a sudden, a bunch of people are going to the weather stuff. You know, that would be something here where it's like, who wants to go to lunch? Let's go to mom's, let's go to the garage. So we could really bring people back. Accessibility. This is a sport that's accessible to all people. It will be designed to all people.
cost effective. Once you do build courts, they're very low maintenance on. And you can always help that maintenance by doing tournaments or leagues and stuff like that to help too. Community support. A few months ago, we did a event at Bridge One where we showed some renderings and we talked about our mission and vision. And just kind of wanted to see what people thought about it, and we have all positive supports of people that thought we bring to the community. So in summary, an outdoor pickleball facility will help bring people together, help the economy, provide cost-effective and enjoyable space for the community. The proposal, as you can see in the maps here, most people know where West Side Park is. There's two site plans there. Horizons is right behind it. We are looking to feature 6 outdoor courts with a central pavilion in it. The existing basketball half court right now needs to go. And we'd be able to keep one of the pavilions, and we're right by that West Side. The demolition plan. So you can see here, the existing pavilion that would remain. We have to get rid of some trees. There'd be one little pavilion that would have to go. The existing basketball court would need to be demolished. Basketball and move backward would be salvaged, which I think Tuck it right now is already working on moving to another location. The site plan, this is what it would look like. So there's 6 courts with a pavilion in the middle. All courts need to go north-south, exactly like tennis courts go, and that's because of the sun, so that you can play longer. It's not in a neighborhood, so there's no noise problem with neighbors. And then there's a restroom and ample parking available. This is the floor plan. A pickleball court is 34 by 20 feet, and that includes 2-inch lines on it. The total space is 202 feet by 60 feet. On the courts, we would have 8 feet behind the baseline. We have 10 feet between the courts with a fence in the middle. And that's really for a lot of safety reasons too. So that's what that would look like. So our renderings. This is a view from the southeast. And you can see the lake in back. You can see the existing pavilion that's in back. There's some 3 courts from the pavilion, and then there are 3 courts past that. One thing I want to say is Pine City, their comprehensive principles, which they have 6 of them, I believe that we satisfy 2 of those. Your second principle is enhance economic prosperity by promoting tourism and recreation. This next rendering is a north view on that walking path going in. And I just want to mention your other principle, number 4, that this would satisfy, which talks about maintain a healthy and livable community through the advancement of public services and recreational opportunities. This rendering is a view of the pavilion. In the pavilion, you can see there could be bleachers, tournaments, people watch tables, for community events. We would have electricity. And you could do rock pots in there, whatever. In the pavilion. This is an aerial view from above. You can see the 6 courts with the pavilion there. We would have lighting in there. You can see the entrances to it. Again, O'Reilly's is right behind it. We could have lighting in the summer. It is light later in the night, so people can play longer in the summer, which is great. So lighting is something you can do in the future, or depending on what people like that. Our project phasing. Okay. We established a 501c nonprofit for pickleball, and we did our articles of incorporation, bylaws, got our board of directors, got everything set. And then we created our mission, value, and vision statements, developed our design, and plants and redwoods, and then started showing that to the community to see if there was, which there has been an interest in this. So our next phase is really land acquisition. And we would like to make improvements on this property in partnership with you. We believe this is a beautiful location and would like this project to be in Pine City. And again, our vision is to make Pine City a destination location for recreational competitive players to compete and have friendly competition. So once we get the land, we would start doing fundraising. And we have other fundraising events that we do. As most people know, we did bingo last year, which we had was very successful, and we'll continue doing it in the future years as long as they allow us to. I know a lot of you play, that's good. Come back. So we'll continue that. And then we also are doing, we're doing a big garage sale. We're holding this at the fairgrounds. And because we have 200 and some members, there are people that we email, we're asking people to donate items of value, something like a lawnmower or something of value, to donate, to turn that item into future pickleball courts. We have a lot of things coming right now. We have 2 big grills, we have lawnmowers, we have some snow blowers, we have a knitting machine, we have kayaks, we have a lot of stuff going on. We're going to be advertising in the paper. And then we're going to have big yellow fingers that are up there. You're wondering who's going to make those. Then, along with that, we're going to have a golfing event in June 21st. And we'll have a silent auction there. And we're going to get sponsors of the polls. And we just started that, and we've already had 4 sponsors come forward. So we haven't really even started asking yet. So we think that'll be a nice event also. Another thing that we started was membership. We started 2 months ago. We put out a survey to see if people would be interested. And people were, and we weren't quite sure what to price it at. And so we decided to do a goodwill donation. So on our form, it says, it's a goodwill donation. You can take $5, $10. We don't care what you give. If you want to be a member and help with this project, so you don't get anything for it. You still play pickleball wherever you want. The only benefit of it is that you can vote on board members. So out of our people so far, we've had 80 people that have become members. There's a lot of people down south that haven't been back. And there's a lot of other people like me I know that are still in a bunch of that. So as we looked at those, our average donation has been $45, which I thought was really good. So those are the things that pickleball is doing. From there, there's a lot of different social organizations out there that we would approach. Wrestling Association, Alliance, Townships, American Legion, New Orleans. We want to approach those and show our vision to them. Also, businesses, we've got ECE. Well, yeah, we talked with them a little bit and already mentioned that they were interested. They'd like us, once we get more forward. There's Quick Trip coming in, all of these, there's a lot of small businesses. And our goal would be to really talk to all those businesses, even if they can't support us, but to inform them of this project and hopefully that they would want to be a part of it too. After that, there would be grants. There's all different types of grants out there, Greater Pine area, down East Central, Electric, US Bank. And then there are some grants of the city to write, which is part of the partnership that we would want, we would not be able to write. And once we did get the funding, then we would go ahead and start the construction, the reports first, and then the pavilion after that. So that's kind of what I have. So I'm open to any questions that anybody has.
Members of council have any questions?
Of course I have questions. Would this be a pickleball specific park, or say if we have tennis players that want to play tennis on those courts?
They would be designated pickleball courts.
Okay. Thank you.
Good question.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. When I saw the rendering, I was just really pleased with how well it fit the space, the openness of it. I think, you can just, from almost any angle, you can just see the whole thing, which is great. And I also love its visibility on that busy corner and the freeway that exposes and says that Plain City is, doing something fun.
Yeah.
So I really like what you guys have come up with. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from council?
Just one question. Mr. Swanson kind of sparked my idea on this. When we designated pickleball, if that's what we go with, if somebody is using it in a different capacity, are you going to reserve the right to kick them off for pickleball only?
I think, we're looking at this as a partnership, and so the city would own this too, and we could help manage how we play on that. I'm not sure what people would want to play on there, but it would be kind of, Rock Creek, we deal with them, it's first come, first served. Like, I don't know what else people would really play on there.
I guess I'm just thinking about kids. They have a tendency to use hard surfaces in different ways. And are they going to be limited? If they're using it in a different capacity than pickleball, are they going to be asked to leave city park for the enjoyment of pickleball?
I think that is something that we would have to discuss in the city and how we want to handle that. I don't know if that's happened in many other places out there. Because they are, they'd be individual courts. Normally first come, first serve, they play and the kids are there, they're there. That's a great question. And we have to figure out if there's some way to handle that. So Woodbury be right by that. Yeah. And you would hope maybe they could, rent paddles and involve their kids to play. There are a lot of kids playing pickleball.
Are we gonna require an MOU?
I was thinking with that. Did you say that last weekend?
Memorandum of understanding, we're kind of gone that direction in the last year or two to try to get some continuity to our agreements. And then we have some kind of a record where before it was like whatever anybody can become.
It would state like your responsibilities, the city's responsibilities. It's just like a clean document that.
Sure.
I think we would, but
Yeah.
I feel like with their journey, what they're looking for now is to see if we can allow them to explore the use of this property, because there's engineering things that need to be explored and whatnot, make sure that all these ideas are gonna work. So that would be, like stage one. And then if it was a green light, then we could go ahead and discuss the memorandum of understandings. You can't get anywhere if
We would want to get
it's not a good,
out there
yeah.
to do their thing to make sure that everything's.
So I think in the future they will be, but right now I think you're just looking.
We need to go to use that one to do that. Don't go forward there.
All right, any other questions or comments from council? Perfect, thank you, Nancy. This will be discussed further on item number 11.6 on our agenda. All right, next we have a presentation from Essential Minnesota Pride.
I apologize in advance. I feel like I have some 14 documents. Trying to be thorough. One of the things you've heard the opportunity to speak today, I can ask for your support. Installation of a historical marker. The MOU is for gun replacement. This is something that's supposed by responsibility for all. This will be the first LGBTQ historical marker in the state, honoring Pine City's place in history as the home of the first real pride event in the country. 20 years ago in 2005. It has been 20 years since 2005. Sick. It's a significant step in recognizing our community's legacy of inclusivity and celebrating the progress that we've made. I do want to emphasize again that this is not to the city. It has been thoroughly reviewed and audited by multiple universities and historians to ensure historical accuracy. The funding will be fully covered by from Clean Water Land and the amendment. Stated by voters of Minnesota. To be administered in the Historical Society. There were some comments asking why this is necessary, or why we don't need, or why we need to celebrate this. Where does it stop? What are the transitions that come forward with this marketplace for this and that? I do want to point out that achieving the ability to install an official historic marker is not something that's just easy to come by. It's taken a lot of work. A lot of letters to universities asking them to review this and ensure that we don't just pull this up in there. Our community doesn't celebrate pride, it doesn't attempt to segregate ourselves from the rest of the community. The community said pride because we were segregated, because we were harassed, because we were beat, because we were tired of suicide rates, because it hit close to home. And see a high school graduate. But because we knew if the world got to know us, we could all do better as a whole. We set out to make the community better. So approving this memorandum is a simple but meaningful action that affirms Pine City's leadership in arts, history, and inclusivity. I urge you to support this and help ensure our city's place in history is recognized for generations to come. We have an MOU. It's pretty straightforward in terms of our responsibilities. With the grant, we would be getting the sign, all the footings, all the work that we've done in installing the sign, that entire process that being grant. It covers the upkeep. It is an covering on those signs. Should they be vandalized, even though it's, cover the cost of fixing that going forward. It's part of the MOU. We do have funds set aside donor that we can use. I submitted a picture of a location. That was the location where we originally started the park in 2005. It was in Voyager Park, where we had to move due to the issues that there was with somebody preventing us from being in that park. So we can see it there. That's where we would ideally like it to be. We're flexible on the location. What we're looking for with this MOU is not necessarily pick an exact location. It is to get approval for you guys that you're willing to enter into this MOU with us and decide a location later, whether that be with council, Parks and Rec, wherever that needs to go from there on. We do have the grant and it's twice a year. The next deadline is in April, which is why I had to get out of the agenda. So again, we're not asking this. That's just kind of a general for that. I did submit some of our references for you as well. Any questions that you guys have?
I am looking at the Placker AI data. Can you just kind of explain what that is and why it was included?
Yeah, so that's actually from the county. We were kind of reviewing, we were mainly originally for how we fundraise and communicate with businesses in the area to express the impact of our events on the community. So I sent over a lot of information that kind of shows some of where people are going before Pride. So use that information to go to business experts and say, hey, 80% of the people that were in Kate, you're going after. Back that up a little bit and let you know that it's based on cell phone data. It is kind of probably a little creepy when you start digging into it. It's not there. This is what Walmart and Target are using. This is why when you say, oh my God, it's giving me ads for this and this, it's because they literally were in something like that. So with that, we were able to kind of put it in. What was neat was last year, we actually attended the annual peak times. District, and other than the county fair, the second highest attendance would drawing people into town. So I think that really stands out. It's that it's really grown. It's gained a lot of community acceptance, and of course, with the city by all in town, and so it's getting tax revenue.
Thank you.
Any further questions from council?
Have you taken this to any of the committees? Because I didn't hear it at Public Works. I just. So it hasn't gone to Park and Rec.
No, that's why I wanted to get it kind of different. Bring it to council, figure this is where it moves forward, we can get a general understanding. We don't actually have. Yeah, we need to understand. So we submitted this last time. They stated that they would like to see an MOU from the city, state, under dispensary, it's signed somewhere. Which really wants to make things to get some kind of funds. It's touching after.
Well, this, no disrespect, but I think it's a lot of, this is pretty short notice. I'd really like to see it go back to, or start at Park and Rec and work its way through the system. I wouldn't feel comfortable approving an MOU at all until our committees have their say. I guess that's my opinion.
So all due respect, I do just hope that people can do next to them. Then you know, you access about sanctuary with the information. So
No, I didn't say I wanted to do one with them, sir. I said, do we need a pickleball? I asked my administrator, do we need to have an MOU? So please remember what I said, not what you think I said. Thank you.
So one point to the pickleball situation, they did request a special parks meeting to come in and meet with parks and go over the presentation. So this is actually the second time I've heard their presentation. But they did bring it to parks for their consideration first.
And I feel like, I mean, you could bring it to parks, but it's a marker, and I believe it's well within the scope of council duties to say yes, yay or nay, if they want to enter a MOU to place a memorial marker. I think the Parks Committee and the Parks Director could help us decide where it went, but you know, the fact of whether we want to do it or not, it's kind of,
The MOU falls on council,
yeah.
and then placement could involve the committees. That's kind of how I.
Right.
Is there some deadlines, Aaron, that you're trying to make? I mean, that's a good.
Foundation has a bid. And that's where we would submit there and say, basically, the city has agreed that the board has on this, and then if we approve the grant, we would then come back to the city and say, hey, we got approved this grant, and then we're city council or to decide where do you want this.
Similar to a conversation I had with Pickleball, I was talking about our MOUs because we have entered into a MOU doesn't mean the whole project's done and we have no more decisions left to make. The MOU, in my understanding, is a starting point from which we can go on. And if at any place it doesn't work out for either party, we have time to stop or readjust or whatever. So I understand what you're saying. It's called a memorandum of understanding. For whatever reason, it's not the final draft. So this draft that's in here, would it look similar to, is that the wording and
And that's just kind of the draft we put together, and that needs to be edited. We are totally open to that. We just wanted to take it one word out. As we have some staff, all this stuff.
Any further discussion from council?
so are we looking to take action today?
I think it's later in the agenda.
It's on the agenda. This was just his presentation that he requested to be on the agenda for, so then it's later on the agenda.
Is this later on the agenda?
Yeah, 12.5.
That's public art. Didn't see this any later on in the agenda.
Oh, so then yes, you'd be looking to,
I'll go ahead, make a motion that we,
Don't we have to close the public hearing first before we take it?
it's public.
Just a presentation.
here, it was already closed.
This was just a presentation.
Are we looking for action now, or do we want to just stop?
It's not later on the agenda, so, and the mayor closed the public hearing, so this is a presentation, and they're looking for a motion to accept the MOU.
I would make a motion that we enter a memorandum of understanding to talk about this merger and let you get started on getting your funding.
All right, I've got a motion on the floor from Gina. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
And a second from Dan. Any further discussion?
I have a couple of points.
Sure.
To Mr. Hill's point, this wasn't brought up in any of the committees, and I have had feedback from the committees that they would have liked to seen it. This starts a public hearing, now we're jumping into an action. Gina has historically mentioned that we need to add this stuff to the agenda and discuss it, so I have some concerns there that we're jumping the gun. But my major concern is that you could be considered a political entity. And is the city getting into a situation where they're endorsing a political entity? We talk about,
If some people believe my lifestyle is political, then that's their choice.
and I don't have any problem with that. I appointed Ken for mayor, and I've always been a strong supporter of your guys' right to, or everybody's right to assemble for products. The agreements that we enter into with nonprofits historically have been regionally specific. Pickleball addresses a large group of people. I know youth hockey has looked at a large group of people. The Lions has done a large group of people. You're being very specific with your group, and you're asking me to endorse your group. And I know that's kind of a conflicting issue in the community. I understand that you've had a lot of opposition over the years. But I also understand that there's a lot of people that don't necessarily agree with this. And because of that, I have concerns that this is a conflict of issue. And I also worry that we're going to get sued because there's could be a religious group that comes out of the woodwork that says, hey, this violates my freedom of speech or my right to religion. And so I have major concerns in entering into an agreement that looks like it could be a political endorsement of an organization that has lots of conversations around.
And I get your concerns, but I guess I'm also comment on this. Does it violate my freedom of separation of church and state and there's church freedom of separation? 61 of it. And at the end of the day, when we serve, we have more events than we serve seniors to sexual isolation. I mean, there's a lot of things we do too. And if you guys don't hear about all those things, and I'm not honest, we should do better on that, but at the end of the day, we have our regional organization. This is. Yeah.
Just to be clear, most of the time when I talk about taking action, it's when there's no attachments to our vote, like where we get here, we get the information and right here now, this has all that 14 pages of information that we were able to review prior to this meeting, so. I feel okay in making my motion and still stand.
To everybody.
All right, there's a motion and a second.
Well, to piggyback on what Kyle's saying, this come up fairly quickly. I have to admit that, we deal with a lot of stuff fairly quickly, and I think this council has shown that we can handle a major load. But when you start doing research on this, when you get this stuff and you don't know, you never heard it until you read it in the packet, I start Googling things, and one of the things that disturbed me was when I Googled to see if this was being done anywhere else and if there was any controversy. In the city of Belle Plaine had a problem, this is back in 2017 and 18, and it was with a park. And just to what Kyle said, there was some controversy over, a religious group that wanted to put a satanic monument there. And so the council just passed an ordinance that there would be no signs in any city parks. So I don't want to go there either, but I don't think if we have enough time to talk about this, that's the only avenue that I can vote. And to what Kyle said, I also am getting a great deal of pressure both ways. I mean, There's people that are sending me stuff saying that they want this, but there's also a great many that stopped me on the street and called me at home and said, no, I don't want this. So I'd like to look at it some more. I'd like to see it go through the committees. I'd welcome it to come to the Public Works. I'd welcome it. I'm sure Public Works and Park and Recs would love to talk about it. And I don't think delaying it, and even if you don't get it around this year, what's wrong with next year? I don't think I think we're kind of rushing things. That's my view.
All right, any further comments from council? We have a motion and a second on the floor to approve the MOU from East Central Regional or East Central Minnesota Pride. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. All right, moving along to item number 6, the sheriff update. Seems that we have a representative from the sheriff's department here.
Hello, my name is Andy Pauls, Sheriff's Office. To be completely honest with you, I haven't worked on this whole way for more than probably 3 weeks. I do know that we did have a report of vehicle problem. I would just like to remind everybody to lock your car doors, only they can go in the vehicles. Other than that, really nothing really large to report. Things seem to be going pretty good now. In my standard patrol operations, I noticed parks look good. I haven't seen any vandalism, I haven't seen anybody hanging out past hours or anything like that. I know you guys probably see me sitting down by the stop signs on 8th and Main. Just to say that we're kind of watching that area. There's sometimes I see people kind of freezing up the stop sign, making us stop. So just remember, make stop signs, everything like that. The flashing lights around do seem to help with that. I know a lot of around golf as well. Seems to help as well. Other than that, like I said, we really don't have a whole lot. Is there any comments, concerns from you guys? Any areas that we could look at? Anything you guys notice around now?
You may have addressed it, but when you take over from someone else, do they kind of tell you the hot spots or help you out? Because I know our parks are very important to us to keep them safe. And we had historically had vandalism sometime in the spring, so the more you can peek at them, the better.
So Deputy Moy used to work down here, I took over his spots, do some scheduling changes, and I will be here for the summer months. And I did work with him directly over the winter months last year. So I would work kind of all over the county. So I would come down here and do something. And I did talk to him over the next schedule page.
One thing that and I know this is hard due to hours and things, but I hear from vulnerable roadway users a lot, specifically pedestrians and people in wheelchairs. And the biggest issues that they're having is crosswalks on 61, this crosswalk on 61 by the elementary school and the 4-way stop at 61 by all the businesses up there. So I don't know if there's any sort of enforcement campaign or we can get information out, but there's been a lot of close calls lately that I've been talking about.
I can definitely sit down there and do some more patrols. Where I can provide you with that piece.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any further questions from council?
Could you say your name again?
Deputy Collins.
Collins? Oh,
Before I do just a few PSAs, to roll in this month here. As the weather's getting warmer, we have noticed that there are more kids walking home from high school and everything. And I'd like to remind everybody that it's 30 miles an hour in speed category. A lot of adults should be being there. As well as there's more people walking around on the ground. You said, we would like everybody just be aware that there are more people walking around, more people here. As well as I know the ice is opened up on the river. Someone's like around here, please just be aware that the water is still very cold. But we are going to go on the lakes, white jackets, the locals. Safety. So.
I'll ask you, we had a hearing on crosswalks earlier, I don't remember what time, 6 months ago or whatever. Do you ever stop cars for not stopping at crosswalks?
I don't know personally, but we can definitely look into that.
So can piggyback on what you're saying, and historically, it seems like in Pine City, they're like, you can go after I've gone through.
Yeah.
Under the crossing, so.
That is something that I'm sure that we could, I'm assuming some of the city ordinance, but with, I can look into that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions from council? Thank you, Deputy Collins.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for being here. All right, next we'll move on to item number 7, department reports. Does council have any questions about or follow-up about our department reports? Hearing none, we will move on to item number 8, committee updates. First up is plan committee. Let's see, where's my office here? We had a busy meeting in our last planning commission. I think we had four public hearings that night. Most of them, all of them, I think, are ending up on our agenda this evening for the redistricting of Fawn Meadows and Cross Lake, the well, and the tiny home ordinance. Other than that, it was a productive meeting. We had some discussion was around alternative style homes, alternative building practices. And that will be discussed at ordinance as well, to see what we could and couldn't allow within the city limits and how to incentivize development and new buildings. Other than that, that's really all I have for planning commission. Dan, do you have anything else to add?
With, selected officers, finally. Yes, this was good.
Next is EDA. I can take as well. We went through our financial statements, our loan balances and things like that. There was some discussion on Meadows, as well as some discussion about the 313 building project. I'll be touching on a little bit later on this evening. Any other follow-up from that, Dan? Next up, will be Public Works.
So at Public Works, it was noticed as a quorum. We did have a couple extra counselors join us. We went over quite a long list of things with some upgrades throughout the city with lift stations. Obviously, one of the big ticket items was art or public art. The committee was looking at it as a whole. They just had some concerns with it in the transportation area, having different colorations or additions that might distract from drivers. If you look across the country, everything's pretty standard. So their concern was that you go from standard across the country to non-standard and it's left up to interpretation. And you already have a lot of people that are distracted. Now they're even more distracted. So the committee was concerned about having any kind of art within the public road right away. For that topic, we talked about hydrants, we talked about the bulk water valve, and we talked about safe crosswalks up at Pine Tech and Lakeside. So, any more?
No, that was pretty much it. Then we're gonna, our staff will monitor things like, we had a speaker from East Central Electric come in and go over the procedures on when someone has a street light out. Or if someone feels they want a street light or don't think they have adequate lighting. So give us, he's gonna work on some issues with East Central and our staff to try to make it a smoother transition, but also we're gonna be sending them a list of the ones that we do want increased. We have one intersection out by, I believe it's the Legion Club, but not talking about it. There we are. That is a little weak in safety. There's been some accidents there. So we think it's time if, do one, let's have a policy that takes care of all of them. Let's get them upgraded. We have some old type lighting and of course, the new lighting LED is a lot more efficient and a lot better. We'll do what we can probably afford at the time, but having a good understanding with them, I think it'll, smooth out some of the problems that, some of the citizens have had in getting a response on that.
I have a question about that. Is there anything that needs to come before council, or that's just things you're gonna smooth out just in public works?
As far as
You said you were gonna look at the policy and see what the people needed to do to get.
no, East Central's policy, East Central's looking at their policy, you know, and we're just making sure that, you know, we want to track it, or we feel it should be tracked, that, and right now they do call Public Works and say, hey, we got it fixed. But we don't have a spreadsheet, or we don't have anything where we normally track complaints and that type of stuff. We just thought this was a easy addition. And that way, if anybody wants to go in there, I don't care if you're on a council or staff, and to see, has this been handled, or has this even been turned into East Central Electric? They can look at it and see that. And that, over the years, I think that works pretty well when I used to do the complaints.
Thanks for
Yeah.
clearing that up.
Yeah, no problem.
Any other follow-up from the committee updates?
One other thing, I think there's a bulk water valve issue that's going on, and Maury's on top of it, but basically when construction companies, and my God, we're gonna have plenty of them coming up here with Quick Trip, need to haul water and it has to be metered out, and so we're waiting for parts to fix this one, so that makes it a little easier. Kind of pretty much they take it, run it like going to a self-service gas station, but now people have to be stopping at Public Works, and that's going to create problems for our staff and that. So hopefully our fingers crossed, the parts are going to get in and we can get that updated. We looked at the outside of the Public Works building. The staff has a strong desire to upgrade the outside and bring it up to, or, you know, looking nice. I mean, we've got some paint that needs to be painted. We've got some landscape that needs to be re-landscaped. And some of that is for the building's future, to make sure that it's around for a long time. We have a very fine facility, a very nice facility for our employees to work in. And we just want to make sure it lasts us a lot more years, because it wouldn't be very cheap now to buy that building when it was fairly cheap when we did it. So I lost some of my notes, otherwise I'd probably have more. That's pretty much the gist of it.
Thank you. All right, next we will move on to item number 9, the consent items. Would someone like to make a motion to approve, or are there any adjustments needed?
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Dan, second from Kyle.
Further
Further discussion?
Excuse me, do we have the new hire here? Cause no. Oh, okay, I was just thinking we should introduce him. Okay, that's fine. Nothing.
All right, all those in favor of the consent items, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. All right, next we will move on to old business. Item number 10.1 is the Fawn Meadows Water Main Project.
And Greg Anderson is here.
If I could, before Greg gets to the podium, just a point of clarification. What we're talking about in the water main loop project has nothing to do with building at Fawn Meadows currently. There is a building project that is been through planning and is in the permit process, and there are going to be things built there. But this water loop does not, it's not contingent for those things being built on this project. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. At your last meeting, listening to, but I was not present. Authorized the plan preparation of plans inspection of the water main loop up at Fawn Meadows. On the screen, it's the heavy dark blue line that runs from the dead end of Fawn Meadows Way over to 16th Avenue Northeast by the North Water Tower and the water plant. The project's been looked at a few times. We do have it in the stage peak of all this potential funding, but talking with Marcy, we thought we just come full circle here after your last meeting, just make sure we're all on the same page. So I updated the memo, put it in your packet, kind of laid out the schedule and what we need to do to get the plans put together. We got to do some topographic survey on each end. We want to make sure we're tied together. to the plat and the property irons up on Meadows Way, which is that north end of the water main, down north of the platted right away of North Ridge, it's not even right away, all the cul-de-sac and down the property, we have two properties that are platted. not approved. So I want to make sure we get that spot. And we also need to do just a level one wetland delineation. The impacts, so we're going to be open cut or truck right in. It's not a permanent wetland impact. Mitigation, but we can show limits on plans. And even though there's a bunch of soil work done earlier by MSA and Outlaw Hay, and Department Parcel, and Young Range, nothing was done here, and I want to get a couple points to verify this underlying soils. So when we put the bids together, the contractors have as much information as possible, so they can get a very competitive bid. And depending on what the soils are, that might impact whether it's. Just want to make sure it's, meet that spot with the pipeline. So, just want to update that, give you a ballpark of what that cost would be, and we get all this done and get the bids back. Then you can decide, okay, now this is it the $500,000 project, it's less, is it more? Right now, we've just been using my estimates, and usually they're good, and I hope we'll find out. And like I mentioned in the memo, and if the council is amenable, I'd like to leave a pretty wide construction window, since all we really need to do is patch the cul-de-sac in 16. We don't really have any other street improvements, allowing a large construction window. What we would do is once they start, we give them a time frame, but we allow them to start sometime between July and October. That way, I think we can attract more bids, get a little better competitive bid, and we can go over to get this installed as cost effective as we can, and get it done this year. The schedule will do that, and just at the bottom, we work on the design here through May. We come back with the second May meeting for authorization to advertise, and the way the calendar works, I can have those bids back to you for your second June meeting, providing a change for Thursday morning. And you can have a bid to consider, and that would give the contractors the balance of the summer and fall. Get it built, it's very good, and you sold.
So at Public Works meeting last week, we learned that there's some interesting quirks about Fawn Meadows. And so I just want to make sure that we have the right to hook the water main up to that portion in Fawn Meadows. It sounded like we didn't actually own any of that, so I guess I'm a little concerned. Can you clarify for me if we have the ability to do that?
Selling water to people who live on Fawn Meadows right now?
Yeah, but are we replacing hydrants? Are we fixing hydrants that are in there? Or I thought the infrastructure was uncertain.
I'm uncertain about all this, but I guess for everybody would have better understanding of that. Knowledge hasn't been accepted by the state. So what that means,
Things can clear that up.
Yeah.
my opinion is your water being used, you're selling it as public infrastructure, provided that the development is something not getting completed 20 years ago. Developments at that time, if not uncommon, I'm sure the city of the end ended up with development. Various reasons. But the infrastructure had been used, the road had been used to keep plowed. I think most attorneys who been carrier will tell you why it's kind of accepted now. And yeah, it's platted right away. It's not like anybody else. So my opinion would be, that water system, so we can bring that in. The acceptance, if you will, of the road and the rest of the infrastructure, that may be a second question, what needs to be done. It's on the existing pavement up on Middle Drive, and anything else out there. Storm sewer, televising, the existing sanitary. A lot of these things are done at the end of the project, and this one just kind of hidden. Houses start getting built, my understanding, and the city wasn't sure at the time, wasn't accepted or not. And the typical scenario on a development like this is the developer puts in a letter of credit or a bond for the infrastructure. The city holds that till it's all done, tested, completed, and accepted, and then they return that bond afterwards with their tax developer. Somewhere between the infrastructure getting in and the houses getting built, the developer disappeared or the bond was found out to be not worth the paper commitment on. So the city was set with a capital development that's not accepted.
Yeah, and I want some assurances because it sounds like the documentation for this project is a little bit light. And I want to make sure that we're not going to have a gremlin pop out of the woodwork and say, well, guess what? So,
Given the schedule, Councilmember Palmer, I think just a quick chat from staff to the council, to the attorney, just to clarify, probably clear it up pretty quickly. But my opinion is, it's the city's water main and we should have to get this done. And we have time to do that between now and then we'll get you back. You know, right now you're just getting the plans together and getting bids. Maybe that clarification should happen before the June meeting if you're going to consider award construction contract.
Can you maybe just briefly explain to the population what the risks are if we don't do this and what could possibly happen on that far western part going to the new elderly rise and the courthouse and everything else on that end of the town?
Yeah, sure. So on the map, you can see the interchange where McDonald's is on the left, road years. The big gray boxes in the middle that are actually wastewater ponds, that's the wastewater is treated, collected, treated, and then ultimately discharged. Remember, the smaller blue line with the red dots going around, that's the existing water main, every red dot's a hydrant. The signal light to go out Airport Road towards the county and city shop. From there, all the way up over past Lee's Pro Shop, McDonald's and Speedway, north to ID, north to Timber Pines, north to the courthouse to jail, back across the Seawood and into the Pond Level Belt, and it's dead end. And if there's a fire or a break anywhere from that stoplight all the way up to Fond Meadows, everybody on their line. So the shortest distance, loop this back to the city is the North Water Tower, and then it's stack up on 16 north of soccer fields and the Perks Garage. The city owns the swamp or outlot B and the land around the water tower, water plant, and the phase 2 of Fond Meadows that I mentioned earlier was added Northridge right away. You can put that in the public right away or on city property and move that back to our system on by the north plant and north water tower, so the water goes in a circle either way. And if there's a break somewhere up by the new apartment building to the courthouse or down by McDonald's, water can come the other way, whereas right now it would stop. Everybody get on that break. Get out of the water. So this is pretty important. This gives just for the existing infrastructure, not to mention any future building development or anything else. So when we do projects and we do infrastructure, we like to loop the water for that very reason. And we have a dead end like this, the goal would be to loop this. So the city has several dead ends in the river. And we have an opportunity to loop that, which is providing water pressure, water quality.
I just want to make one final comment about that. This should have never been gone this long. This is horrible. And this was bad legislation on previous councils. So I made a point when I got on the council, we're gonna fix this. And I'm glad we're working on this.
I was just taking notes. You said better pressure, better quality, and
Better fire pressure.
thank you.
Can I ask if you know off the top of your head, the average depth of water pipe on that dead end main?
For the plan, it should be 7.5 feet from the surface to the top of the water main. That's our city standard. That's pretty universal in Minnesota, 7 to 8 feet that's across. That's what the plan said. Find out when we dig it, but we'll put it in 7 to 8 feet. Typically, you want the water at least that cheap the streets because we've got frost goes down in the winter, down 5 or 6 feet. And another reason to move the water is the water to move ways where if it's not moving one direction, if there's a better chance to potentially freeze if there's not a lot. So this would be another benefit to the system.
Perfect. What are we looking for today? Are we looking for a motion to continue moving forward with this project? Is this just informational? What's the,
I've already authorized the plan to inspect.
Yeah.
You're comfortable with the schedule?
I'm comfortable with it, but I would like to get that legal opinion by the June meeting if that's possible.
Agreed. All right, thanks, Greg.
Thank you, Greg.
All right, next we will move on to item number 10.2, Parks and Recreation Storage Options.
So at the last council meeting, council directed Brock to come up with some possible options for storage. And do you want to explain any of this?
Yeah.
So hopefully I'm from the city games that have set up and played on this building. See, my garage is here, centrally located in town. I would ideally like to stay central. I put a couple options here. It's mostly temporary stuff. It's, this container. I got two quotes. Just save. This is always basically just yard stuff. Yeah. Bit other stuff I can bring to public works, people, sewer, all the old hot place, shed. I checked it out today, and I think it was fine, but I have good containers and stuff. Stuff like that. Another thing is, this is in here, they have sheds. This one's ready to go. I pretty still got just a basic one. So they quoted me at that. There's actually a sale on it right now. It's 20% off. This would work okay. It's not ideal. It's long, skinny buildings, so you care about walking on something. Sounds like that's not gonna be really enough for a lot of things. So, yeah, I don't, if you sell this building, some funds to buy instant storage. It's instant. And then the other one was about 8 weeks out for this, right? Storage container. So options for locations, I'm thinking, like I said, central town is nice. Where we're ball and so over by the large harbor, there's a little spot where the little zone used to be. That's kind of just the dimensions of that little shed. Or the south side of the weird hall. Another option would be there's a shop in town, I know that the lease may be up in September. See, that doesn't help right now. But it would be a great spot for central. Otherwise, it's usually shed on the west side of the cemetery, out by the hill. As long as the lighting's really good down there, I think it'd be fine. Windows. But otherwise, yeah, it's like the progression of over the box, the quarter, I can.
I like the one with the doors on the side, and I think it sounds like you do too, so I'll make the motion, we go ahead and let you exercise that and buy that one with the 4 doors.
I'll second, but I'd like to ask a question.
A motion from Dave and a second from Kyle.
Chief Miller, what's your thoughts on placement by the fire hall?
The one drawing that was. City Street, that was here. Say that I saw.
Be very good access.
Okay, I guess the logic that I'm thinking along is that I know that the fire hall has cameras, and I just like having this stuff in places that has cameras for security, because everybody likes to break into everything around here, it seems like. So that would be my thought, to make sure it's protected.
That's pretty. It's like this, that one shadow already.
Well, even if the building project in the future was a possibility, the storage container will not be hard to sell. And so, and that would be, and we might even move it to another location for another use. You know, I can think of things maybe out by the soccer fields and give them something to put their stuff in or something like that. So the dog park, or something similar to that. So I would say, I would encourage that, and maybe look at that. We're going into budget, we can look at it and see if there's a possibility for a building, and if it would work over there. I don't know where the water mains are exactly in that area, but Tommy probably does. And, that might be a factor too, where we would place a building where a storage container can be moved.
I think long-term, I would say a building would be more ideal.
Right.
We're kind of reacting here to this building going away, so potentially going away. So I think we need to get you something sooner rather than later, so.
This is a stopgap. Yes, that's so.
Absolutely.
Can I ask you, it sounds like you're gonna have a bunch of stuff in a bunch of places. Are you effectively gonna be able to manage your people and do your job? Is this adding a lot more time to your daily having to? Would two be better than one? And not saying necessarily two of the 40 footers, but I'm just thinking, like you said, centrally located. What's it get at? You know, if you've got mowers over here and you've got stuff over here and you gotta go get this machine over there. Once I.
I think if this is a stopgap factor, then we add it to one of the budget discussions and we look at putting in something a little more permanent, to your point. And we maybe try it out and see how it works this summer. We might find out a lot of things that having it all spread out is a good thing, or having it all central might be better.
True enough.
You're utilizing trailers now for things, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah. Oh,
All right, any further discussion from council? Okay, we've got a motion on the floor from Dave and second Kyle to move forward with purchasing the storage unit. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Bob. All right, next up, we have 10.3, future meeting location.
So we held our special meeting at the library's community room. I feel like that went well. I believe we are good to have our meeting that is scheduled for April 24th here again. We're just keeping this on the agenda to keep it current and because we could be in a situation where this won't be possible. So I think if his council is okay, we will have the April 24th meeting here, which is set to be the quarterly budget meeting. And
There's a planning commission meeting here that's got public hearings.
yes, which were already set, correct, for the 23rd of April.
okay.
Any further discussion from council at this point?
Are we gonna pick a date or a meeting? Is that gonna be the last one and then say that starting in May, all of our counseling committee meetings are not here?
I had an idea to, if everything goes well and this building sells, to say we're moving out and we're also moving, and I would like to promote moving our council meeting into some of our parks and moving it perhaps at the community room again, but maybe up at Hilltop, Robinson. Maybe have one at the college, like a day meeting, so that the college students could see what the council does. So I think we could do a campaign like we're moving on and we're moving all around the city to be, to be in the public. That's my idea.
I think it's an awesome idea to show different things in the public. My only concern, because it came up last week, is how do we make sure that it's advertised or web link works every single time? And are we gonna get into a situation where we have unreliability? There was a lot of feedback on that people were pretty upset with the fact that they couldn't attend online. And so wherever we choose, I'd like to make sure that that link is available for people that have trouble with attending meetings.
And if we couldn't do the audio or the video, we could at least do audio, listen like the old days. I mean, I think the video is nice too, but.
And at the special meeting we had last week, it was done through a laptop and the camera attached. So I do feel like that's portable. We may not have a big TV, but
How did that turn out when you reviewed it? Was the picture good or was it clear enough to hear?
yeah, it was.
You could hear everything? Okay.
Perfect. To someone's point earlier, do we want to set a date? Do we want to set up May 1st date or kind of our first meetings in May or no longer in this building or?
Yeah, I'll make that motion that maybe we start doing other locations.
Okay, May 7.
Sure. I'll second. All right, so there's a motion from Kyle and a second from Dan. Any further discussion?
We'll still have to figure, because they won't all be in the same place. We gotta check scheduling and it's gonna, like, some committee meetings might be at Hillside, some might be at the community room, some might be traveling.
I think there's gonna be a window of confusion because even today, I want to say I had 4 or 5 messages. Where are we meeting today?
I was confused.
So it is gonna be confusing.
You know, and maybe it could be that we have our evening meeting in the same spot and our Thursday morning.
Travel.
meeting we travel on or something like that, and then coordinate it with whatever committee needs to meet, you know, make sure that we kind of piggyback. I mean, there's ways,
Okay.
and that at least would be a little bit of a pattern.
Okay, so we'll have our 24th meetings here still at 315 Main, and I will bring maybe a calendar of what it could look like.
And I would just like to make sure that all the locations that if we are roving, meet fire and life occupancy rates, ADA compliance, and they're inside in case it rains on the day that I
Okay.
think we would have to reschedule on the fly would be difficult.
That's a good idea.
Did you have any luck looking into like the VFW or the Armory or other places? The county has said that we could probably use that once or
Yep,
twice.
college has, I haven't checked with those 2 places though, but I can definitely get that.
I mean, they're nice facilities, whether they meet all that. I think the Armory wouldn't be a problem with the ADA. I'm not sure about the VFW. That's
Perfect. Any further follow-up from council? Okay, we do have a motion on the floor to start in our main meetings to move them out of this building. Motion by Kyle, second by Dan. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Right, next we will move on to item number 10.4, the water service rate study.
This is on here just as I'm meeting with, Ellers tomorrow. No, wait, Friday, sorry. Friday, they were just looking for more details on this, so I do have SEH's proposal. I do not have Ellers yet, so that will be on. Should probably have it next week, I would assume. They're just looking for a little more direction. So it's just an update.
Perfect.
Can you expound a little bit so that people don't know what we're talking about, why we're doing this?
Yes, okay, so we've had the businesses come forward with questioning our rates. And so at the ordinance review committee meeting, we had Jason from Ellers come and talk with us about our water rate study. And in that, we found out that the last time this was done was 10 years ago. It's typically done every 3 years. And so we are due for this, and there's also a study that will show usage, which would help tie in the arrangements we have with our townships who just use sewer. So getting these rate studies will help us redo our contracts for that usage and get a really accurate data back showing how off or on we are with what we need in our cities for maintenance, upkeep and that. So it's a very accurate study. And when we meet with him on Friday, he's gonna get all these points from us so they can then accurately do the study and bring forward the rates proposed.
Thank you.
Any further follow-up, council? Hearing none, we will move on to item number 10.5, the 315 main work group recommendation.
Good evening. Leslie, for those of you that don't know me. Thank you for having me tonight. Done a lot of good work on the work group. Been meeting since October-ish, September-ish. Kind of reached a conclusion as best we can provide you. So just to bring everybody up to speed, this needs to be the trends of the evening. Back in October, the city published an RFP, so a request for proposals looking for developers interested in redeveloping this building. On February 3rd, we received 2 proposals, and then on February 13th, the third one came in before the group got together to review the 2 proposals that were submitted by February 3rd. Reviewing those 3 proposals, the group had lots of questions, follow-up that they wanted the proposers to address in their presentation. So a month later, the work group posted kind of a interview style work group session where the developers were able to give a presentation, answer the questions, and then there was kind of a Q&A at the end to, you know, if there was a question in the presentation that didn't get addressed, or one of the questions that we have posed to get clarified, that they were able to do that. So working with the work group, you know, comprised of council members, members from the planning commission, community, and the HRA, so that there was a good broad perspective reviewing these proposals as well as the presentations. And you know, some feedback from them was, you know, publicly taking a stance in favor or against a proposal made that some people uncomfortable. It's a small, tight-knit community, and we all have business relations together, so not wanting to hurt feelings, we did an evaluation process during the presentation, allowing them to kind of check boxes that, yes, they met this criteria that was listed in the RFP. Those check boxes were added up as points in each category. Evaluating each of the proposals we had sitting in the room, it was hard to gauge just watching, you know, which one was going to rise above the other. And I think you see in my report how they were very evenly scored. That's a blessing. You are fortunate to have 2 very good proposals in front of you, where we had a lot of naysayers that didn't think we'd get any. So to them, I say, haha. Knowing something can't be done, I will try really hard to prove you wrong. So here we are, 2 proposals. We've evaluated them beyond what they have given us. I worked with Troy Stewart in the county assessor's office. He looks at what they've proposed. So these are very estimates on what the estimated market value will be post-development. Things change. The legislature can change how property taxes are classified and calculated. So every year, you know, they have their complicated little system that they plug everything in and come up with what your estimated market value would be, as well as how that's distributed out. So you have in front of you what each of the proposals estimated market value and what possibly their property tax impact would be. Mind you, that's overall. So that's not just the city's property tax that you will get, and it is divided between the city, the county, the school district, and then the other special taxing districts, like the Regional Development Commission, or HRA levy, and things like that, as well as the state takes their little. And so in front of you, I have not only the market value of the tax impact, but also the proposal of representation evaluation, and the overall impression that each of your worker members felt the presentation proposals had. And just to kind of quickly go over what the 2 proposals were, we had one from JCF Properties for a multifamily apartment building with an addition on the north end of the building. And then we had a proposal from Legion Real Estate Group for 2 options. One concept was a hotel, a 37-key hotel, and then a other concept was a rental, as an option hotel. Noting in the JCF property that it was about 30 housing units within the existing structure, and the addition would add another 34 units for a total of 64 units of multifamily housing. And that was a variety of units, between efficiency all the way up to 3-bedroom flex. So not just small apartments, but a variety that accommodate, a wide range of incomes as well. So that's a very quick overview. I think some people are expecting a decision. I'm here to answer any questions. If there's any further clarification you need, tentatively cancel the work group meeting for this month because there's no real reason to meet unless the council wishes to have a work group get back together. But I guess I would just open up questions, comments, concerns.
Leslie, one point of note that I wanted to add, and maybe you said it and I just wasn't listening, but the JCF proposal did also include some short-term rental housing in there.
Yes, they had indicated in their presentation that some of them would be reserved for short-term rentals.
Like 12, I think was just to throw that out there as well. So we,
Yeah, so the mix was, and that is one thing they had changed is the addition was moved from a 3-story to a 4-story. And 12 of the units would be short-term rental units.
And I want to make sure that I understand it correctly as far as the financial piece goes for both development companies. Those things are typically vetted out more as we get farther down the path. Do I understand that correctly? As you get into the developer agreement,
Yeah,
there'll be a little bit more of how they can financially make it viable,
right.
the funding, if you will.
Yeah, and I think the discussion I've had, like, when you're purchasing a house with a better, that says you're doing the market should really, you're not approved to buy a house. You are approved for a range. I think in their proposals, they did get new letters from their banks that typically went to them in these projects saying, yep, we've done projects with them, pay us back, they're good people, you know, let's spend it. That's what smarts are gonna get until the plans are fully wrapped out, bids coming in, and they're going to the renters to get that financing taken care of.
Okay.
So in the development agreements, it's where it gets a little tricky. We talked about performance bonding and letters of credit. Typically, you see that when it's public improvements, and once you transfer this property, it's no longer like a public property, so it would be a discussion I'd have with the city attorney when we're drafting that development agreement about how can we require performance bond or a letter of credit, for what? To renovate this whole building, that's not typically what we get, or is it to receive it back? So those are things we can work out with our agreement. So that is something the worker was concerned about is transferring this to a private developer and how do we make sure they finish? There always is some risk. The development agreement does ensure that they might lose something if they're not finished. And we see those development agreements in hilltop cottages, the village apartments, timber pines. Typically when they get that far into it too, they want to finish it. Barring, the great housing recession of 2008 and 9, typically do see these go through. Does that help explain
Yeah,
it? Any-
absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
I didn't, there was a purchase price, offered by each. Did that remain the same?
Initially, JCF offered $1 and Solutions Real Estate offered 100,000. In the JCF's presentation, they didn't indicate that they were negotiable and didn't want to lose the project over that price. Somebody, everything. Thanks.
So you mentioned the February 3rd deadline. Was any of the information in those proposals passed along to the individual that submitted their proposal on the 13th?
Not from me. I would say, I believe the Friday after they were due, they did get emailed out to the work group. What the work group did with them, I can't tell you if they did or didn't, but I can tell you that I did not violate that ethic there of sharing with the third proposal that came in.
And when we, with the work group, when we set the RFP, correct me if I'm wrong, but we were more interested in getting proposals, and the date when we said it wasn't a hard and fast date of February 3rd. If the work group received the proposals that we were hoping for, then we could move forward. But if we didn't have what we wanted, we could take longer.
We open it.
And I understand that, and that should have been a council decision to reopen it. So my question is that the two options that we're referring to right now, is this one that dropped in on February 3rd and one that dropped in on February 13th?
Yes.
And one is probably a little bit more ideal to city than the other one, favorable, I guess?
I don't think so. I think they're both, in my opinion, both proposals satisfy parts of the comprehensive plan and development. I think they would both have equal benefit. I mean,
And I get that, and I really want to get rid of this building, don't get me wrong, I've been an advocate for that for years. But I really worry that information was passed on to another party to make it maybe a little bit more favorable by council. And I always have concerns that we're putting things out for proposals saying, hey, we're gonna do this, and if we don't get the proposal we want, we should come back as a council and put it out. I feel like information was passed along, and that is not transparency, in my opinion, on how the city should be operating. And so I have concerns with that process.
I think I will just reiterate Dan's point there. Either one of these proposals, should we make a decision to go with either one of them, would benefit the community. I think you could make an argument either way of which one would benefit the community more. And you would have a lot of valid points either way in which one you could would benefit the community.
So if we choose one, what's the next step? I think you went over it, but could you review that again?
The next step would be, so we draft about a purchase agreement first, and make sure that the conditions are in there. That if they don't meet certain standards, you know, it could come back to the city, and we would also at the same time draft it up.
And at that time, could we add, maybe escrow and other things if we intended to?
Both of those would come to you guys for your approval before any signatures are made. So, yes.
Do we have a process for making a decision, or is someone just gonna blurt out what their favorite is and then we're gonna like say, well, that's my favorite too, or I just, when I volunteered to serve, I didn't know I was gonna be playing Shark Tank and have to like make this decision. I mean, here we are, but
And I think if we need to soak on this and we need more information from Leslie, I think we could soak on it until the May 1st meeting before we make a final decision if there is more follow-up. Not that I also don't want to see this thing out of our hair as fast as we possibly can. If we're ready to make a decision tonight, I guess that's one thing, but
yeah, I'll follow what my constituents want, but I wish that we had a process for how we're going to make a decision instead of the loudest voice might win or something. I mean, I'm just making things up at this point, but it just seems awkward. I just think that we could have a little more professional way to make our final decision as a council. That might take a lot.
It seems like the process was well done. There was a work group, except for this deadline thing. I don't really like that. The request for proposals went out. We had two really good options. The work group worked through it. There was a lot of input. I feel like at some point we got to make a decision. Otherwise, we're going to keep pushing it out, and these developers want to make a deadline. My thought would be to go with whoever submitted their proposal on February 3rd, because that's who I had endorsed for the proposal. That would be my thoughts as far as transparency and accountability. So
I feel again that both projects would be great for the community and support the comprehensive plan. I tend to favor one over the other for the simple fact that one is a plug and play process, if you will, and one is going to take a lot of cooperation in doing with the city, zoning and parking variances and construction. There's just a lot more at stake and a lot more that would have to happen for one project to be completed over the other. I personally feel that I'm ready to make a recommendation towards the project that I'm leaning towards, but that's simply because I've been involved and from the start.
I would like to make a clarification for the public. I have not been part of the work groups. I was not at those presentations. I have no idea who these parties are, other than one party has fallen through on the February 3rd deadline. So either party, I don't know which one is which. I'm just going through on the one that actually followed the procedure.
I agree with you, Kyle. You know, I think we need to let the second one in because we didn't stop it when it happened. So, in all fairness to them, I think it's, we need to just move on and make the decision like Dan says. I didn't like it either, but it happened and I don't know how you're gonna change that. So, we allowed it to happen. We didn't try to stop it. We didn't try to change things. So that's it.
So what the heck? I would make a motion that we would move forward with the Solutions Real Estate Group proposal for the development of the hotel to allow for the professional things in the background that need to happen.
I'll second that. Oh, sorry, you want to?
All right, we've got a motion from Dan and a second from Dave. Any further discussion from council?
I'm just saying that the city should operate under very clear and transparent and accountability. It should not be areas of opportunity, even if it fulfills my goals. I want to be very transparent and equal for how everybody's treated. And it seems like we're shooting from the hip at the moment. And we're going with whatever our opinion and what our desire is. I don't think that this builds the best long-term partnerships with how we deal with the individuals that make proposals towards us.
And my opinion again is based on the amount of time that I've spent in the 315 work group and being involved in reviewing the proposals almost a million times. So I'm not trying to be not transparent. Like I said, just throwing it out there. But we got to move sometime.
Well, I base my second on the calls and emails and texts I've got. And I counted them and it was over above and the other way. So I guess if somebody's spoken to me, so I'm gonna listen to.
Well, and you guys could have gave the opportunity to the first vendor to meet those same requirements. So.
Any further discussion from council? All right, at this point, we have a motion on the floor from Dan to move forward with the Solutions Real Estate Group project. And a second from Dave. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you, Leslie.
All right, moving on to item number 11, we have 11.1 mass notification software.
So we spent quite a bit of time on Teams meetings with 4 different software. It's a mass notification where we would be able to get information to the community very quickly. They would sign up for it as residents and we would be able to get notifications immediately, whether it's to your cell phone or to your home phone. And it would say something like there's a water main break on this street, or please boil your water, or and some of them, so Melanie put together this spreadsheet showing the different things that each of them have. Whether they can as residents, you can contact the city, like there's an enormous pothole on this street. It lets the city know these things, or if there's a limb down, or but it's a really interesting and I think incredible way for the city to communicate with the residents quickly and efficiently. So this was just to put together what we found from the 4 different companies, and they also have like package deals, obviously, but
Well, one of them had an app on the phone, and it was everything that you need to access for anything in the city. Like it had a bill pay function on there, tap it on your phone, takes you to the bill. Public Works, all the way down, you can set it up any way that you wanted to. It was,
Yeah, that one was in the presentations that I saw. I still haven't seen the one from Catalyst. That's our current website vendor, and they would bundle with other products that we're buying from them. But the one that had the app, that was the GoGov, that had the app, and that was they totally build and brand a phone application for our municipality. So it would be like Go Pine City would be our app. If we go to the App Store and download it, it would be links to meeting times and dates and all kind of the top 10 things that you want to get from the city. We'd send out the notifications, so you could send out push notifications to these phones, meeting dates and times, water main breaks, other issues with the city.
Where the council meetings can be.
They all have the availability to do voice calling as well if you don't have a cell phone. So they can call your landline and able to get a robotic voice, but you can it'll relay the message that way.
And that was rolled up.
That was GoGo.
So
Yeah.
that is a lower credits per year. That would, do you think we do 25,000?
yeah, because one thing that's concerning is, let's say we sent out a notification to, it's gonna count so if we have 3,000 messages going out, that's gonna count as 3,000. Should people text us back then, that's gonna count also as one of our credits or
So
calls.
then the pricing changes down below.
right, and they explained that, the text call credits per year are, they literally have to buy them themselves so that they can use them through, I don't remember what the entity was, but there was no markup on them. We buy them for this, but we have to charge for it.
If you have the app installed, it's not a text message. It's just a push notification. So it's like if you have Facebook installed and you get a Facebook notification versus a text message, it's not billing you for those like it would a text message. Now, how we differentiate that, I don't think we ever really got a super clear answer on, but
Do you know any cities that are, I thought some city was using text my gov, that's a neighbor of ours.
A neighboring city does use text my gov.
and
I
I have a couple, I don't know that I have my notes with me. I have one of the cities, the app that another city uses that has the GoGov, that's a local Minnesota municipality. It's in Broda. Yeah, so if you search Go Zembroda on your phone, that's their app from there.
So are we looking to make a decision or is this just informational at this
I
point?
think this was just an update. I don't know that we're ready to make a decision on this yet.
I don't think so. I think there's, just want everybody to know that
Yeah,
we're
it is.
we're working on effective ways to get information out to the community.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing how this would work.
And it's all sign up based, so if you don't want to be on it, you would have to be on it, but we're just. For me, my opinion is how can we get better information out to the community in the way that they want to digest the information?
I think this is awesome material. I'm pretty open to trying just about anything as long as we, vet it as we go through. We've been told over the years that there's all this different software. This is gonna be the next best thing and everything works great and it all falls short. And we end up using the newspaper, the radio and Facebook on a regular basis. So, I just want to keep that in mind that this is actually vetted. We're not just throwing good money down the hole and that if we do implement a process, we start looking at it every single week to see if we're getting the results out and not wait an entire year to find out this was crap. So.
I think for me, discussing with staff, because for me, like, I have my own opinions on what is best, but I'm not the one that has to use it. And I'm not the one that's gonna have to do the data. I would think that maybe getting staff, involvement on maybe the top two. And then look and see if we can have the top two presented to council to make a more effective decision. Again, there's,
So is there a committee on this?
No,
No.
it's been staff and.
I think there should be one, and I think you'd be perfect.
Kent and I, when we discussed as a council, Kent and I were involved with the
I
presentation
think,
for social media management, and that's just to try to gather information.
I think sometimes that we go committee overboard on things.
Yeah.
My first thought would be to put this on staff, since I visualize that they're probably gonna be utilizing it the most. If they find something that works for them, then I will work around it to make it work for me.
10-4.
But committees can go all over the place.
Well, and I'm not so much saying we need another committee, but we do have an expert that handles a lot of technology. So why not utilize what you have in place? I mean, it doesn't say that he has to run the show. He might have some tips to help make it go faster, so whatever.
I think we definitely have, I have my favorite, I will say.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
I did too.
And I don't.
Well, see.
All on the same page.
So you guys are on the committee. I think that's a great idea.
Perfect. We will, we'll continue on and
Yeah.
we'll go from there.
Okay.
Perfect. Next up on the agenda then is item number 11.2, snow storage agreement with the Pine County Ag Society.
Right, this was brought to us. We have a agreement between them and ourselves for snow removal, and we have a fee we pay for this storage of our snow. So they brought forward another agreement that will be from this October until April 30th of 2028, and I think they basically raised it. It wasn't much, so we're keeping our. It's pretty much the same agreement with a small increase.
I think we raised it, $20 from what it was
Yeah.
this year, and then every year it goes up $20 a month for the next.
It's not,
A month or
no,
So-
year.
a year?
Well, yeah, it's per month, it goes up per month,
$20 per month.
yes.
So right now we pay, or $350 a month for those 7 months for that storage. Next year will be $370 per month.
And then the next year, 390 per month. And then, are we done giving it a raise? Or
Um,
why did they raise it? What was their rationale?
I'm not sure. I missed a couple meetings with the fair board. So I'm not sure what the rationale was behind raising it other than,
Is there an exit clause? Should we not need that land to store our snow if we found another location? Is there a clause for breaking it? I think it's a.
See that?
I mean, you can stop paying.
Yeah, there you go.
We should have an out clause. If we do find an alternative place to store the snow, it's good to have. I think it's probably one of the most ideal locations, I'm guessing. So we'd have to come up with something that's pretty outstanding, but yeah, I think we do have to have our due diligence and making sure that we're being financially responsible.
So, council could make a motion, approving this with an added, 30, 60 day clause, like we did to the
The
other.
addition of our.
I'd like us to come back after the first year and review this. I don't want to just go on and on and on, and just increase after increase for whatever reason they think it's right. I think we do a lot of stuff between the fair and the city, maybe more than people actually realize. And I'm not saying they don't deserve it, but I think we should, if we do our due diligence, we review it. It's like we review every contract instead of just saying, okay, this is the way it's gonna go forever. I'd like it reviewed again next year.
You can add that to membership, add an annual review of the contract.
All right. Got a motion from Gina. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Second from Kyle. Because I am a member of the Pine County Agricultural Society, I will be abstaining from this vote. So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is 11.3 Hillside Lease Agreement.
Oh, okay, this is just an updated lease for inside, we have 2 rentals inside of our city hall building and on Hillside, and we are giving them new leases. They are aware of this as well. They are both now current on their rent and they are expecting these new leases. We did do a little increase in the rent and they're aware of that. And I'm just looking for council to approve these.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, we've got a motion from Kyle and a second from Dan. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, next up is 11.4, a draft MOU between the City of Pine City and the Pine City Chamber of Commerce.
This is a draft MOU, basically stating, the city will be doing her phone line in exchange for other services, and, this just puts it in writing. The city does not pay an annual membership for the Chamber of Commerce. So this is in a way the city's contribution to them, as well as she's offering, I think it's like 15 hours of her services for promotions or other things within the city.
This is just a standard landline. What's,
Yeah, we do not do, it's not an internet or anything, it's just the phone line.
And it's the line the numbers she sent.
Yeah, they let her keep her same number that she had here.
the guy just was wondering what phone it was. Okay.
So I see this has an out clause and it also has to review this annually. So
Yes.
I make a motion to approve this MOU between the chamber and city.
Got a motion from Gina. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Second from Dave. Any further discussion?
Is there any way that we can reduce the end date of 2050? Seems a 25-year agreement.
It's
seems-
long, however, we review it every year, so that, and then, there is, yeah, so it is. There's options for creation.
Okay. Any further comments from council? Hearing none, I've got a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. All right, next up is 11.5. This is the ECMEC agreement. This is I can touch on this a little bit. if
Sure,
that's helpful.
sure.
This is our city servers. They live at Pine Technical College on some of their networking hardware. We basically lease space on their equipment. We're kind of hands off other than needing to restart the machine every once in a while. So this is just us hosting our data in Pine Tech's cloud, if you will.
And we had looked at options of doing it in-house ourselves. And then we'd have to have upgrades every couple of years and and this is something, and then they do this, it's at a very minimal cost. They do it for other entities as well. So it's just basically a renewal of our contract. I don't even think there was a increase in this contract. It expires next.
Does this one go? It's like, there it is, 12 years. It's
That was 2027.
which shall terminate on April 30th, 2022.
I'm always concerned about data that we have for billing and all sorts of things being on somebody else's servers. So are we 100% positive that there's enough adequate security in place to protect our residents' data?
So these servers, though they live in Pine Tech's data center, they are walled off from everybody. So basically, the way this works is there's a stack of 5 servers that lives in Pine Tech. All of Pine City schools, or kind of the surrounding area schools are all hosted on these servers. They're all walled off for just that specific organization's network. So logging into these servers, I can't see data from Pine City schools. It is as if those servers are sitting in Iraq in the city hall. So it's essentially as if we own and manage the servers there. We're just offloading that cost of the hosting and storage to a different organization. And there's a fiber optic cable that runs between Pine Tech and shortly the fire hall that will transmit that data.
And Pine Tech has access to these servers.
The ECMEC staff have access to the servers. They don't have usernames and passwords to log into Pine City servers. That data center is a locked, hardened, BCA approved, CJIS certified data center. So it's up to kind of the most stringent standards you can get as far as security and
And the ECMA staff, are they adults? Are they college students? Are they?
Yeah, the gentleman that's the president, he's been there 25 years, I want to say.
And they're actually located at the Graham High School where their offices are held.
His number 2, I've worked with in the past. She's been there 5+ years. I can't speak more than that. I know she's been there for at least 5 years. So.
Wait, I'm just making sure with all the cybersecurity stuff that's going on, I learned some stuff about AI technology today that has me very concerned about putting our information anywhere else that's not in our immediate control. Even if it costs more money and I could guarantee that or certify that it was going to be safe, I would be interested in spending more money to make sure that our residents' financial information is secure.
Could we build this as we're doing the budget? Because this would take a full-time IT person to manage, am I wrong?
It would be best, I had the thoughts of moving it to a local server, but it's best if someone is keeping eyes on it, getting those notifications, getting emails, getting things like that, making sure things are up to date. If we had a full-time IT staffer, that would be something that could definitely fall in their wheelhouse. I don't think we're there today, clearly. So, so at this point, I don't know. We could try to bring it in-house. I just feared that we're going to run right up against this April 30th timeline for ordering equipment, bringing it all in-house. It would be my recommendation as IT contractors that we continue on with the current.
Is that your motion?
Technically, if it's IT related, I don't know that I can make a motion.
Well, I'll go ahead and make a motion to continue with that. For now, and points noted, Kyle, that we need to continue to explore doing it on our own.
Someone want to make a second?
I will second for the sake of discussion. When we talk about investigating our own policy, is that 15 years from now? Are we going to look at it this year? Are we going to look at it next year? What is the time frame?
Saying when you want to get it.
And that was going to be my recommendation, is maybe we knock this 2-year contract down to a 1-year contract. With does this have an out clause?
Review it.
Or review it after.
As an over reviews. It has a 30 and 45 payment. Oh, it does.
No later than 30, that's for invoicing.
Terminate the agreement by giving the other party 30 days for
written notice.
um,
To your point, Kyle, I think setting goals is important. And I think maybe through this upcoming budget process that we have, we can see if we can build it into there, if it makes sense. And hopefully by this time next year, we can have a plan in place to have it in-house. Because you're right, generative AI and AI I've been learning about too, it's really scary. And it takes up a lot of power. I didn't know that.
Physical safety is important in my book, but cybersecurity is probably even more so because it's something that you're not monitoring all the time. I mean, you don't look both ways for pulling up your financial information, and then all of a sudden you're gone. So,
And data is the most valuable thing on the face of the planet. It's worth more than gold, it's worth more than titanium, it is the most valuable thing on the face of the planet.
so the motion, the second was for approving this. Do you want to stick with the agreement to the 30-day L clause, or do you want to knock it down to a 1-year contract?
You'll be able to do the same thing.
yeah, we just review it in a year, and if we want to terminate it at that time, we have 30 days written notice.
That way it doesn't have to go back and come back.
Perfect. As I am the current IT contractor, I will be abstaining from this vote as well. We do have a motion on the floor from Gina and a second from Kyle to approve the contract. Any further discussion from council? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. All right, next we move on to 11.6. This is a request for council action, Pine City Pickleball Association.
This is from the Parks and Buildings Committee and they had a special meeting to have this presentation that you also saw tonight. Staff recommendation is option 1, approve and let Pine City Pickleball Association begin the proper tests and studies to determine if this location and soil is fit for court and a pavilion. Option 2 is to do nothing and tell Pine Area Pickleball Association to find another area.
Thank you, Mercy. Councilman Burks.
I'll make the motion that we move forward with option 1.
I'll second Kyle's motion.
Brandon, got a motion from Kyle and a second from Gina. Any further discussion?
The only, and maybe I missed it in the discussion, but when does the MOU enter the picture for this project? Because I believe there needs to be an MOU as well.
Yeah, so this,
I think they have to do,
this is, once the studies and samples have been determined, they'll bring back their findings, council to get permission for next steps, so then.
And their face.
That's when we would interject the MOU.
we're looking at soil samples and boring samples to make sure the product. is
Testing and research needed to see if it's a viable violation.
that. Any further follow-up from council? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. All right, next we're moving on to planning at number 12.1. This is a Ryberg well placement variance.
So we have the owner of 548 Avenue, who is actually trying to sell the property for quite a few years. Currently, they're able to place it due to not having current water on the property. Our current ordinance states that if it's 200 feet or more away, they do not have to connect the city sewer. When it's measured out from, so the thing, 7th Avenue is where the actual water main is. And if you measure from here to the back of the property line, it's 162 feet. If potential house placement would potentially be about 200 feet. I did review this with Maureen and he agreed to this as well. And the final step, there was a public hearing, there was nobody at the public hearing at planning commission. And I did discuss this with Adam and and the fire hydrants are fine in their spots.
There's other properties that are around here that have wells too, correct?
Actually, the 3 properties across the street from this home.
All have wells, okay.
I did some research too, and I'd love for them to be able to sell this property and have water. However, I feel like what I've learned from others is that variances go under zoning ordinances. And that if the city is going to consider approving, putting a well on a city lot, that we should at least run it by our city attorney to make sure this is legal. Because the last thing we want to do is think we gave him a solution and then come to closing or something and find out that we didn't have the authority to do a variance because water connection isn't under our zoning. You know, it's just, it's above my pay grade, but that's what I learned, so.
Did we ever do any checking with the DNR?
Not on this.
I feel like there's been historic times when people have talked about having wells that have been close to our water that they've had concerns about. I really don't want them coming out of the woodwork either saying we violated something.
I searched the city's drive for what was currently there and how the other 3 got it, and I could not find anything.
And the other 3 are outside the 200 feet or they're inside? the
They're outside of the 200 feet. But it's all, I guess to me, if you look at where the potentially we built our ordinance for it is kind of great.
I kind of agree with Gina at this point.
I really want to say yes, but I don't want to say yes without asking our attorney, can we do this?
And you follow that,
It would
right?
be worse for the property owners to, go ahead, that was,
You follow no record of it anymore. Do you know how old the homes were that are existing there now?
But if they're outside the 200 foot, they wouldn't fall under that issue, right? So this is that one situation where we're looking at giving a special agreement to. This could really open us up for major impacts in the future if somebody has a similar situation, because I think nobody wants to hook up to city water because it's a lot more expensive than a private well. Talk about treatments and everything, but I don't think everybody's lining up to hook up to city water.
So I would make a motion, that we table this, pending reaching out to DNR and the city attorney to make sure that we're covered and bring it back. What's that?
it's all right.
He's the owner.
Yeah, we want to be first, second, first, or
I can
I'll second your motion, and then we can
open
take
for discussion.
absolutely.
If you look at the sheet, drawing that made up, the SDH approved that. I think it. And get the SDH.
We can.
I'll try to explain why. Like that, understand. I've been trying to stop traffic, it's because of.
That's your brother, his brother here.
My brother lives on this side.
This way, okay.
Yeah, and that's in Heffernan, so. On this drawing. The solid lines are existing. The space lines are where I want the water and the sewer. But as you can see on Eighth Avenue, there is no sewer and water on Eighth Avenue. And my lot is lot 3 there, it says right on the lot. And all the utilities are on Seventh Avenue, water and sewer. So the solid blue line is the water line that goes north on this 20-foot easement. Goes north, it goes to lot 12. And the yellow line is the sewer, and that services that house line. So the sewer does come up to my property to the southeast corner. But the space lines show that I have to hook up to the water line on Seventh Avenue, which is probably an 8-inch pipe. So that's where the city water comes from. So I have to go through this easement, and the blue is where I come into where probably there's going to be a house. You can see there's an easement to the west too, it's 20 foot. So there's easements for this, but the cost to do this is way too much. That's why I can't sell the lot, because you can't get water to it. That's why I'm asking for a variance for well on the property. But the thing is, you have to hook into the water main, 7th Avenue. And there's quite an expense to that, just a street open. You have to wet tap, but because it'll probably be a 1-inch copper. I don't put in, but that's what would be put in. And the thing is, this easement has a lot of utilities like telephone, there's electric, overhead electric, there are 2 poles that go in this 20-foot easement. And it's overhead. And that's an expense too, because it's right in the middle of the easement. And I'm gonna have to probably get the electric company in to hold the poles while I dig on it. With this water. And you also got a 8-inch PVC pipe for the sewer that goes to the corner. And there's so many utilities and obstacles in the way, it gets too expensive to put this water main in. And also you have, this is people's yards. You're gonna have to get the topsoil on, put it back, seed it or put sod down. There's trees there too that have grown through the years. So the people along this easement probably don't want to treat the place. So, I mean, there's so much cost that it really isn't worth it to put a water line in here. So that's what I'm asking for variance to put a
May I speak out? I would help Paul with this too. It does actually fall within the current zoning limits because to the house where a house would be built, it would be. So you don't really need to adjust zoning in order to allow it.
I think I'm more referring to digging a well on property.
The current zoning says it's more than 200 feet, then they can build well. In this case, it is.
So if you know, with the investigation from the lawyer, or, you know, okay from the lawyer, I would love to say yes. I don't want to be the council member to get the city in more hot water.
Perfect. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to table this and get DNR/attorney review. Anybody want to make any amendments to their motions, or should we proceed as is?
I think, are we moving it forward to another date?
Yeah, we're just tabling,
Just tabling it for.
Yeah, but what date are we moving?
pending reports from those 2 entities. More information, I guess.
Well, I think we put it on a forward date, and whether it actually happens when the agenda is put together. Well, that could need to be. But I think if the council taking action, we should say yes on the next agenda
If we want,
under old business.
if we want to break a rule about making decisions on Thursdays, we could do it then. Or
Yeah.
if we want to wait until the next evening meeting, I'm fine with either one. 2 weeks seems quick, but
I think we should get an opinion.
I think we could do it at the Thursday meeting.
Yeah.
that's our goal, and if it doesn't happen.
Okay.
Perfect. All right, so we've got a motion on the floor to table and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, that motion carries. All right, next up, we will have 12.2 Cross Lake Preserve rezone.
So actually for Cross Lake Preserve and for Bog Meadows, they do have very similar situations to where the city was approached about having chickens. Owners in these PUDs want chickens, and being they are currently zoned as a PUD, our city ordinance does not allow for that. I kind of talked with Leslie a little bit on this and kind of how we go forward, how we get these out of PUD. I think Preserve has, I think, I was informed one property possibly left to be built on. On Meadows, obviously, as we know, is not really gonna move forward with the current houses that are there. So for Cross Lake Preserve, I found the developer's agreement that they had put in place, which then, once this comes, I mean, we held a public hearing, and in order to get it out of that, in the public hearing, all of the residents in both of the districts were informed that we held a public hearing. I received quite a few phone calls on it. This does not change anything for them. It just gets them out of the PUD and gives them their own district following their developer's agreement that was done with the state.
Any follow-up from council, questions, concerns?
I guess I got concerns about bird flu and smell and runaway chickens running around the neighborhood, and it does have an impact on people's property, so if you want chickens, why not live outside city limits? Why live inside city limits with chickens?
So we do actually have quite a few residents that do live in town that have chickens. They are only allowed to have 5 birds. They're not allowed to have roosters. They have to be penned. I mean, the city has an ordinance strictly for chickens. It's just these two districts are still in planned unit development. They can't, there's a lot of restrictions that they shouldn't and can't be doing. Some of them already are. There's other things happening.
Have we gotten any complaints on chickens? And you know, I sit up sometimes at night reading and the dogs are barking away at 10 to 12 o'clock at night, and you know, I've never heard a chicken go cluck cluck. I'm all for it. I'll make the motion when we pass.
I'll second.
All right, any further discussion from council?
Just for clarification's sake, PUD, when it was done, it should have been taken out of the PUD and zoned as part of the city. This is just another piece that you're closing,
Right.
if you will, that
That's what I understood.
Perfect, so I've got a motion from Dave, a second from Gina to approve ordinance number 2025-03. This is an ordinance, we move forward with a roll call vote. Dave,
Yes.
Kyle,
No,
Gina,
Yes,
Dan,
yes.
I will also vote yes. That motion carries. Next, we will move on to 12.3.
Same kind of concept. This would only be for the current homes that are in that district. Any other new developer that were to come in, they would have their own zoning guidelines, they would have their own developer agreement that they would have to follow, obviously draft, because that's going to be turned into its own PUD. This is a vacated PUD. These homeowners don't have pretty much any standards really to follow. Without the developer, The developer agreement was actually not very well done. I actually had to go on the weekend and measure strictly, like, this, on each individual property, how far apart these were, so that we could fit their ordinance together.
So again, we're just looking to clean this up and move on.
Just for these things.
So I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve ordinance 2025-04.
I'll second.
And again, with everything that's going on, we have the ability to do this, or do we need another legal opinion on fundamentals?
I spoke with Leslie about this and this is what we were told that had to be done. We had to hold a public hearing, all the residents need to be notified.
And I get that, but neither Leslie nor Greg are an attorney, so do we need a legal opinion? We're getting that on water.
I'll just rezone 50 times. We kind of rezone to fit the use too, when it's like we've had areas that weren't allowed.
I have reached out to our professional planners on this. I have had conversations with them.
We had apartment complexes that have been there for 25 years, zoned that they couldn't be an apartment, so we fixed the zoning to match what was there, and that's, and this is just, in my opinion, finishing up done on the business.
All right, perfect. We've got a motion and a second on the floor to approve ordinance number 2025-04. Any other follow-up from council? Hearing none, this is an ordinance, so we'll proceed with a roll call vote. Dave?
Yes.
Kyle?
No.
Gina?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
And I will also vote yes. All right, next up is 12.4 tiny homes and appendix Q ordinance.
So tiny homes were actually being talked about when I first started with the city, when I was taking taking minutes for planning commission. This ordinance has gone through, to be honest with you, I don't know how many conversations, how many ringers it's gone through. Essentially, the professional planners put this together. And again, it went back through time and time again. It went through ordinance committee. It was reviewed by fire and life safety. It was reviewed by fire department. It's been reviewed a million times. And
Rum River.
yes, Rum River,
The plans people were using for a while too.
MSA.
SSA.
Yes. This was originally put together by them. After it went back to planning again.
So this is a pricey bill ordinance.
Working on it for a while.
I kind of pulled it out of the way MSA had it written and put it together so it was easier to be read and followed along. The red line is what it needs to be added. And then you do have the final draft at the end of it. During the meetings and everything, we were made aware we do need to adopt the state of Minnesota Building Code Appendix Q. That is a big thing that went through. There was a recommendation from Fire and Life Safety to remove parts of it, and if motion or passed in the public hearing, it's removed. To you guys.
Just for the sake of asking, since I wasn't part of all that stuff. I understand that it was reviewed by Rum River Fire Department and Fire and Life and maybe signed off on, but is there anything that made you maybe hesitant or concerned or things that might pop up that might have to deal with in the future with this?
There was a conversation we had at the last planning committee meeting. In the appendix Q ordinance, they allow for offset steps. And it was brought to our attention from Adam that might be a life safety issue if you're trying to get a stretcher up offset steps that are not your normal staircase. The recommendation was made to just eliminate that verbiage from the ordinance and go with what they call a ship ladder or something that's like a steep set of stairs with a sturdy entry on those things. I think that's all the follow that we've had as of recently. This has been something we've been kicking around at planning since Few years.
February.
And I understand that. Is there anything else from Tom or Adam on that? Or was everything covered?
As you keep in mind, we did verify that. Distance. Normal, old definition and something like that. We did not. Unknown road concerns, but we trailed us went through and from there. A lot of research. I think that it is least of all the concerns have been.
All from Congresswoman.
The precipice for this, where it came from, is it started as a conversation at a planning committee meeting of when we were putting together a comprehensive plan and studying housing and how many non-conforming lots we've had and how building trends are moving nationwide and in our state, even in our county. And then that conversation turned into another conversation about tiny homes, and then it was like, well, why don't we try to go after this? And we did, to help satisfy the comprehensive plan, to add to housing stock, to be able to provide more options, and give people an option to do what they want with their property.
I would say that we were informed by the building inspector that they are not aware of any other municipality in the state that actually has this ordinance. So I'm a leading path for it.
And they would be conditional use still?
Yes,
Yeah.
all conditional use permits are current, so we do have a current section about accessory dwelling units, and those are also done, those are other homes, those are still staying as conditional use.
There's a lot of things I worry because we have full-size houses and they're hoarder houses and they're life safety threats and all sorts of things. And I just wonder if this is gonna be compacting the issue. On top of that, I worry about property value. If you end up with a tiny house next to your house, is your property still as good because you're in a different social neighborhoods? Aesthetics does have a play on what people want to buy. There's a lot of things about this project that make me nervous. I understand getting something built and doing something with your property, but safety still is a big factor in my mind, and then also the overall view of what we're trying to have as a community.
Well, originally, we started talking about this a few years ago, before I was on the council, but it was, what do we do with these non-conforming lots? You know, we've got a few of them around town, and at that time, tiny homes wasn't very popular. And so it never went anywhere. Right now, it's a very popular and economical way for some people to afford housing. I don't know, part of me agrees with you, part of me, you know, we have such a mixed town. I mean, my house sits in the middle of houses that are worth half of what my house is. And nothing wrong with the other houses. It's just that mine happens to be a little nicer house. Well, I'm not worried about it. You know, sells for a little less, maybe it'll sell for a little less. But generally, houses stand on their own, their condition, their look. In today's environment, what I've noticed anyway, I wouldn't be overly. I'd just be cautious about where we allow these. I'd like to be, you know, start out maybe with some non-conforming lots to try to fill in that area where we can't put anything else, and see how that goes. You know, because if you can't put nothing else there, maybe that'll work.
I mean, is the tiny house the only option, or is there anything else that we can do with the non-conforming lots? And the thing I asked about is, I know Duluth has houses where you can reach out the window and touch your next door neighbor, but if your house burns down, the lot turns into two lots and things are spread out. I understand that might not be ideal, but is tiny houses the only options for those non-conforming lots?
I don't have the answer to that question, but it seems to be that the non-conforming lots are non-conforming because they don't meet the standards to put a structure there. That's why they sit empty and can't get built.
Setbacks are a problem too.
Most of them are the setback issues.
Yeah, setbacks are the biggest problem I know.
Any further follow-up from council? I guess at this point, I would make the motion to approve ordinance 2025-05
I'll second.
with a second by Dan. Any further discussion? All right, this is an ordinance, so we'll proceed with the roll call vote. Dave,
Yes,
Kyle,
No,
Gina,
Yes,
Dan,
Yes.
and I will also vote yes. That motion carries.
so do we need to adopt appendix Q as well?
Yes.
I'll go ahead and make that motion to adopt appendix Q for tiny houses.
are you gonna take out that wordage that has that steps
Step, I
there?
think it's already-
It is our
All right, we've got a motion from Gina. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Second from Dan. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 I thought we had to vote.
Or is it a modification of the ordinance that we have to?
I don't know.
yes.
Okay, perfect. So we will proceed with a roll call vote again. Dave,
Yes,
Kyle,
No,
Gina,
Yes,
Dan,
Yes.
and I will also vote yes. That motion carries. All right, just a couple more to go here. Item number 12.5, public art.
I don't, yeah, I can reread what I wrote, or what I read earlier, just said, ordinance review committee met in January. They decided to create a draft ordinance, it was reviewed and presented in February, changes were gone through. Back in March with more discussion and a few small minor revisions, and the ordinance is approved to move forward. For the public hearing that happened at the beginning of it. During the January Public Works meeting, extensive discussions took place, and it was decided to further research and revisit the matter in March. At the March meeting, additional discussions occurred, and the committee recommended proceeding with drafting a policy to prohibit any changes in the transportation right of way due to safety concerns. This policy will be presented at their meeting for review.
Follow from council members.
I do have a question. As far as road right of way goes and ownership of property, does the city have the right to have art in a road right of way with ownership? I mean, we have a right to have an easement through there, but do we have the right to authorize art in a road right of way? And I only ask that because what if something goes in front of your house that you don't like or you don't like looking at? You're paying the taxes, but the city just said it could be there.
I have potholes in front of my house now. Look at that.
Well, no, I get that. You talked to Maury on that one. But
little hot mix, please.
I did a little bit of digging on this and looked for other cities, municipalities within the state that allow painted crosswalks. That was, the public art was one thing that I looked for, and then art on crosswalks was something I looked for, and I came up with Brainerd, St. Cloud, St. Paul, Granite Falls, Duluth, Hopkins, Minneapolis, Anoka, and Golden Valley. That I could find for sure that have an ordinance that would allow painting within the city right of way.
And I also reviewed all of them same cities, and that's kind of where the draft public art ordinance came from.
I'm gonna refer to the safety too, because we talk a lot about safety. The very first meeting that we had, there were, members of the community that talked about safety. And one was, feeling safe, mental health wise, and public art can also, just make a member of the community feel welcomed and safe. So that was important to me. And then just safety for it being visible. I too had a son that was hit in a crosswalk when he first went to junior high in that busy road, so that, you know, crosswalks, anything that can draw more attention to crosswalks, it's a positive thing. And I think I just put it in with our murals and our gardens and garden our crosswalks for, I think, just be a great addition.
For me, I'm trying to get to the blimp view of this as it came to us as a colored crosswalk and has developed into this public art potential for our community. for people to have another way, for freedom of speech and freedom of expression. I think it's a great how, and I think it also opens a great where. We didn't have a how before, and I think for me, it's important. I'm trying to remember that this public art ordinance gives us the how, the where and what, comes from when projects come forward. So that's, I think it's a really great thing. I really do. I think it's a way to build community. I think it's a way to, they're economic drivers. Let's be honest. There's art installations that are economic drivers. Look at the Trolls. I don't know if you guys have heard of the Trolls or not, but people drive all over the country to see these things. So I think it's great. I think you've done a great job of vetting it and making it fair.
So I think art is awesome. I think art is awesome in parks, and lots, in places where it's safe. I still go back to safety on roadways. I mean, if I think that I'm a firefighter and I really want to have the curb in front of the fire hall painted red, does that mean that it's a fire lane that nobody can park in front of anymore? If I go to another yard or another property and I want to paint it all white because I really like the color white, is the property owner supposed to maintain it white at that point? Or is that on me? What if the property owner doesn't like looking at white?
The thing that I like about the ordinance is that it gives council the ability to say yes or no to any of these projects. So if you filled out the permit and said you wanted to paint the curb in front of the fire station red, that would come back to council and we could say, do we want to allow this group to paint the curb in front of the firehouse red? And we can decide. Again, for me, this is the how. It lays out the how, and then if somebody wants to paint a white curb or a red curb, or if they want to install a statue in a park or whatever, we've got a how, and then we can decide if we support the where and the what.
But to that point, should council have the right to say yay or nay on that stuff? This colored crosswalk is a prime example. The council wants this item, so they're gonna use their authority to do it. But should there not be something in the ordinance that just says, if you meet the criteria, you're eligible to put it in? What if somebody else comes along, what if a church comes along and says, hey, you know what, we don't want abortion or whatever, so we're gonna paint the crosswalk that goes with abortion or whatever, against abortion? That might offend some people. It might offend the council. Does the council have the right to say yea or nay? Does it become a political battle at that point? I don't want to put the council where they're having to use their opinion on what they deem is worthy and what is not worthy. I want to just have an ordinance that says, you meet the criteria, let's do it. Or you don't meet the criteria because it's full of hate speech or something, so you're not eligible.
And I think the how also explains that it would be color only, no symbols, no letters. Did that make it in there?
No, that was removed by ordinance.
There was also another part in that ordinance, I think it was under. Yeah, pull it up. I think under the sections of 5.32.20 definitions, and it talks about construction project means any capital project paid for wholly or in part by the city in construction or removing of any building structure, so on. And then it goes on to reference nonprofits, and we had that legal review by the state that the city's not supposed to give any money to nonprofits. So are we opening up trouble, or is that supposed to be in there? Is it supposed to be removed?
I think the construction project language was supposed to be stricken
Yep,
because there's nothing in the ordinance that relates to the construction project.
no,
And then the eligible applicants underneath is just, these are who we're saying would qualify, right? Recognized
yes.
associations, special service district, business associations.
So where was the thinkology as far as county right of way problem? Because my conversations with the county, they absolutely want nothing to do with this. and do not want it on any of their streets or their right of ways. So,
I don't think we would.
We can't.
well, it's in the language that it's in the ordinance that we're allowing them to apply for that, and then we're gonna, so we gotta sit there and be the police so that everything happens before the council. I don't, the multiple phone calls I got, and I kind of know where this is going, but, I had people, hollering and screaming, which we all get, that's just part of the job. One guy wanted the 10 Commandments, the other guy wanted American flags on everything. One guy said, if you let them do that, I want dairy and farm animals on everything, which I think is kind of cool. The white crosses, that was another idea. One guy wanted to put white crosses on everything, if that's what they're gonna do. And I think the ultimate one was the Swedish flag, not exactly sure how that come in there, but everybody's got their own idea. Granted, I got deluged with emails and texts from a lot of people. They generally were formed the same, but the people that talked to me in person were very vocal and said that this is not what they want to see. So I could see, maybe a sidewalk, some painting on sidewalks, that are not in the right of way, too far out where that distracting for drivers off to the side, but that's about all I would ever care to approve.
I'm not opposed to this ordinance. There's some things that seem to be in here that shouldn't be in here, like the construction. There's the writing where you said it was just supposed to be paint, not just writing. I don't like that if they're gonna put a message in the paint or whatever. It'd be nice to have some kind of approval by the adjacent property owner who might have to look at it the whole time. But I'd also like to have some criteria in there where, again, if you meet the checklist, you're coming into the council for basically consent item, not we're gonna have a political battle on who we're endorsing, who we're not endorsing, and then lead into one big debacle. So I like this as a framework, but I'm not comfortable with approving it at this time because there's some things in here that shouldn't be in here, I don't think, and some things that need to be added so that we have a little bit better backing.
I've done some reading too where this does cause vandalism. I mean, it does increase the vandalism. And if we think it isn't there, we can have our feelings, all of us, about how we feel about this. But there's people there that aren't gonna care whether we think it's a good idea or it's not a good idea. They're gonna, and I don't know, I think we're in an area now where we can't take these increased costs, and that's just gonna be increased cost. And I'm not sure Maury's got a paint crew out there to clean up this stuff. He's got enough to do. So I guess I'd say we need to bring it back and look at it to try to tweak it a little bit and take some of this stuff out, especially the crosswalks, because I haven't seen anything that national or state. Sure, there's places that have done it and they haven't any problems yet. That's many problems, but there has been problems in certain places.
Did you say that this wasn't the ordinance intended, wasn't the final, or I'm not really clear what you said. I made a face back at you, but I don't know what we were.
That was first paragraph under 532.020 was not meant to be in there.
No, I don't.
Okay.
Back in there.
I remember
not there.
it wasn't there, and I remember allowing symbols, but no text.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's how it's written.
So do we have a clean copy or?
Well, not with the additions that need to be, but symbols and words were completely removed. I do know that. Them were completely removed, and part of it was each application would be reviewed by council. Yeah, right.
And I also have another question. Do we have a kind of a designated amount of crosswalks that are currently in use by the city that this would be a candidate to put art in them? Have they been identified?
I just did not know.
I think I think the discussion was that we were more focused on the how. And if, again, if applications come in and that's when we review the where and the policy that Public Works wants to put together for safety prohibition and all that would be part of it. But again, just this is more of the how.
Marcy, question for you, legal wise, are we treading on ground that, you know, we're gonna pass this if it passes? And then we're gonna find out that we probably shouldn't have passed it. Does this need to go through legal first?
So, Mr. Schilling gave us a couple websites to review if we're interested in. One was strongtowns.org and the other one was Streets MN. The one that I checked out after he gave us those addresses is the audio, so. that's what that is. But both seem to be talking about exactly what decision we're trying to make here. Are we going to allow arts in our crosswalks?
There's a lot of concerns here, and one of my other concerns is how is this installed? And there's an example on the table, and I worry about the safety of those individuals that are putting that in, if they're putting it in at night. I want to say that the community is very, most of them are very open, and I think there's bad individuals out there. Are we gonna make it safe? Are we gonna have police out there? Is there gonna be an opportunity for something very bad to happen? And it's easy to do a drive-by and hit somebody and move on. I'm very nervous about that. As far as your safety in parks, if you do it during a well-lit day, during normal hours, it's very open. Your safety is a little bit higher up. I'm really concerned about doing it in roadway stuff.
Anything that is, anything that is done in the right of way, whether it's on the streets, on the side of a sidewalk or anything like that, they would have to follow, they would have to get the right of way permit from the city. So they would have to meet those guidelines as well.
And again, after the art, reflective paint is the standard.
They have to
reflective paint.
follow exactly whatever the state guidelines are for that.
Well, I just want the record to reflect that the Public Works Committee is completely voted against it, so. Just for record.
What did the record say?
The Public Works Committee voted 100% against this.
Because
They did?
It did.
They voted to table it with a review.
Right. Well, they didn't vote to send it on.
The members of Public Works want to have a policy which was no for anything in the transportation corridor. That was the decision of the committee members. I know that there was other individuals that were there, but they weren't part of the committee. They were bystanders. So yes, the committee did want to have a no policy just from a safety aspect.
Right, and I did know that in
is there rationale to back up that art and public crosswalks are unsafe? Is there?
there's pros and cons to having public art altogether. Like, I do have a list of, some of the pros and cons of it.
About safety.
Is there rationale to say that it's safer, or does it create a?
I don't know, I'm just asking what Public Works used as a rationale, that's all. You don't have to answer that, I was just wondering if you do.
I don't.
I think everybody on the Public Works did their own investigation, and that's what they determined, so.
I think the general,
It is what it is.
the general consensus out there is that the different agencies involved are more of an opinion based, but there's no
Right.
final decision yet as to legal law here or there. It's an opinion. At the end of the day, there's safety concerns. If somebody gets hit there and they say, well, it's because of this, then you would have your answer. So
I mean, I've read stuff like the Federal Highway Administration says stop the crosswalk art. And this was mostly concerned with St. Louis. I mean, there were several articles about
And I read a New York Times article that said that there is no data that, as much data as the people.
Correct. So even when I did I'll admit it, I used ChatGPT and I said, give me the pros and cons of public art. And it is not a pro and it is not a con for any type of transportation safety. Again, it's AI, but that just pulls everything together that is currently out there on the internet. And the amount of research that I did doesn't support it, but it doesn't go against it.
Aaron, did you have something you'd like to add?
Yeah, it's what I'm writing. It's a 120-page annual study that occurred in the city constellation that I would say the effects and how it brings safety. So I guess how show you that this is big and safe and there's nobody else give it to us.
Well, that's fine, Aaron, but there's people that don't agree with us. That's the way America is. We all get to vote our ways.
So are you looking for an action regarding the current ordinance that's in place regarding all the wordage that's in there? Do you want to delete any of the wordage? Do you want to update, or are you just gonna move forward? I don't know that the sidewalk crossing thing is exactly here. I think it's just the ordinance, isn't it?
Correct. This
Right,
is just the ordinance.
I'd make a motion, but I don't have the verbiage to take out what was discussed.
I would make a motion to pass ordinance 2025-02, striking the language under 5.32.020 definitions, construction project. That sentence should be removed.
All right, I have a motion from Dan. Do I hear a second?
I will second that.
Second by Gina. Any further discussion?
Again, I don't like the fact that the language is gonna be subjective to whatever the council decides is important or not important. It would be nice to have more criteria to just say either you met all the check marks and you're good to go. Or
Would you be comfortable with, our committee helping decide what is artistic fit for the city, or would that like a actual committee that, because they did that mural and I know they worked really hard on getting the mural a good fit for the city. Would the council be comfortable having the art council help they helped us with their banners once too, I feel like.
I'm not, I mean, that's a great idea. Again, in a park setting, in my mind, if they came forward and said, hey, we got some really cool reflective black paint, we want to paint the whole crosswalk black because it's reflective at night. Kind of want Public Works to review, hey, maybe that doesn't make sense in the day, but I don't know that I really want somebody else deciding on it. I just want to have a list of check marks that you go through and you sign off and say, I met the criteria. Here's the evidence, council approves it and moves on. We don't have debates on which entity we're gonna approve or not approve.
I respect your point. For me, in most things, you can do that, but art to me is so unique and everything is different that I don't know that you could put together a checklist because each project could be so uniquely different. And in spacing and that kind of thing.
To that point, what if there's something that's unique and important to you and offensive to me?
Right.
And to your point, then we get into a match of who's violating whose freedom of speech.
Right, at this point in time, we do have a motion and a second on the floor to approve ordinance 2025-02, dropping the first sentence from 5.32.0.0. Is there any further discussion from council? Hearing none, as this is an ordinance, we'll proceed with the roll call vote. Dave?
No.
Kyle?
No.
Gina?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
And I will also vote yes. That motion carries. Next, we'll move on to item number 14, council concerns, 14.1 on water tower contracts.
Well, I asked, Marcy, to look at, with current contracts on the big water tower here, not the one out there, but the one here. I'm not even aware if there's anything on the one out there. I should know, but I don't know. But the one here has T-Mobile and Genesis. And I guess I was with all the confusion and the contracts that we find that haven't been reviewed on a regular basis. I was just wondering about it. I just thought about it. What are we doing there or what's going on? So that's what I asked. And I haven't got anything, so I figured she's gonna tell us.
Oh, well, thank you. So the water tower contracts are not both currently because Genesis was sold. So we are in needing to get that contract updated.
And how about T-Mobile?
T-Mobile's is current.
For how long?
Oh, that I can't, I will have to. get
Okay,
back to you.
okay, I mean,
I do remember since I've been here that we did that.
yeah, I don't know much. I wasn't involved, so I like,
Um,
I'm just curious.
after Kyle's concern, can I have a quick, I just want to ask more something.
Perfect. Any further follow-up on the water tower contract?
I don't have any more. I think we got that explained to us. That was what I wanted to know.
Next we can move on to 14.2, then replacement of out-of-service hydrants priority.
So we always kind of talk about hydrant replacement, but we never really follow through. At Public Works, we did talk about hydrants and we got the list was awesome, Maury. But we never really budget enough to fix hydrants. And one of the hydrants is right next to Pine Tech. And I'm thinking if our server room is on fire, we're not gonna have enough water to put it out. I think that at some point we have to get these fixed. I don't know if it's cheaper for us to spread them out one over the year or just go through and hammer them all out with a contractor. But we need to actually set aside some money and get these fixed. Because some of them are in very critical areas that could significantly impact the city for life safety and industry and everything. So
Water insurance rates.
Well, our trucks carry 1,200 feet, right? 1,200 feet of hose. And you can always go to one to another, but what if you get to that other one and that doesn't work? And that's the concern. Over the years as fire marshal, I fought hell like heck to get this taken care of and try to get some stuff in the budget. It seems to be one of those items that I think we can whack that off this year and do it. And I agree with Kyle. I think we just, when we go into budget now, we just figure this out and we get this done. Because this has been too long and I'd rather start with none of them needing repair. And then we can budget so much a year, and if it doesn't get used, well, then fine, we carry it over, we absorb it into someone else. But let's just get this done, because this is a matter of public safety, and I don't think, that's one of the main jobs that we're entitled, that's what we've been and asked to take care of for the city, is our public safety. And so I think it's ultimate that we take care of this.
what is the cost of a full replacement on a hydrant, Maury, off the top of your head?
Well, Rick got better, when I spoke to it, range would be 15,000 to 30,000. Curb and gutter, streets and valves and, yeah, material that attached to about at least 10.
So that's something that's certainly never gonna go away.
Maybe cheaper.
Right.
No.
It would be
That's
nice to have,
what-
to try and set a deadline that in the next year, this stuff gets resolved. We're gonna have talks about budget and everything. It would be nice if Maury could decide whether or not it's more economical to do it in-house, or if it would make sense to have a contractor just come in and hammer them in. I don't know. I'm not the expert on that sort of thing, but it'd be nice to have like a 1-year plan, because I think some of these have been out of service for a little time. So
Here's a outside idea. Is there a way that we could put out for RFP to have companies come and bid what it would take to replace all of the hydrants? So that we would have an idea going into budget, what we could potentially need to budget, how we could split it out over years, if we could put it on the capital plan.
I think those two could probably give us a good estimate. Greg likes to round up high.
Well,
I was
they're
thinking-
gonna have to look at each one of them and determine what they need.
If you had one company, you might be able to and this is just me thinking, if it was a company to do them all, there may be some breaks and pricing. Might get less of the labor cost, you might be able to save on some of the materials. I don't know.
I guess I would look for, absolute worst high cost, and that's what we plan on. I like the RFP idea. I just wonder if we would have to pull the trigger and move forward with it. I don't know how many would just say, hey, we're gonna come in and propose our financial information without any kind of actual commitment from the city. That's the only thing that worries me. Maybe, I don't know, what do you think, Greg? Would companies want to just volunteer their information for public knowledge?
One would be, with an alternate solution project, you can have a number, but I don't know if I can get that on there. The other probably, we'll have a couple of new items as part of that. So we have a new price for that, but I think you mentioned each one's a little bit different. We got street repairs, sidewalk repairs. So maybe more, and I just look at it, come up with a ballpark based on some data we're gonna get this year on hydrants. And you got a number. If the water system project went ahead, we could ask that. So there has a change order to that project too. And where you are with the budget.
So we're starting to build our budget. Next meeting, that might not be enough time for Greg and Maury, but can we set a deadline for them to maybe bring that information back?
A second meeting in May for our discussion.
How much time do you need, Greg, Maury?
We could do that.
Thank you.
Because part of this could be paid for out of the water enterprise fund too.
Could be.
I asked Maury a question too. I didn't turn the paper in on that. But what's going on 8th Street with that nice little. Well, yeah, tell me the whole story, because I don't really know. Like, it was water main that broke. Yeah, that poor little man that got so much trouble. Just please.
Yeah. Yard up. Obviously individually.
So, yeah,
Right now, we're at a point where we get some of the eye. School development and projects plans over.
oh, okay, so it's done, just.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, at this point in time, then I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Dan, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Kyle, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.